Hello everyone, I'm very glad that you listened to my story. Please give me a follow and like the video if you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and provide feedback so I can improve the sound quality. Yes, we invite you to listen to part 2 of the series. Chapter 18, Chapter 18, Chapter 18 I've wanted to do that for a long time _1. Chapter 18, Chapter 18 I've wanted to do that for a long time _1. I believe him. When Li's statement shocked everyone present. Little Li. When Xiuxian looked worried as he watched Wen Li step forward. Don't worry, if Mr. Fu had wanted to kill me, I would have been dead more than once just now. Wen Li offered a weak smile and solemnly bowed to Fu Qian. Thank you for saving my life just now. If my father said something offensive, please forgive him. If possible, I would like to continue to rely on you later on. That's more like it. Miss Wen seemed to possess a certain grace, not tainted by the mean streak common among the wealthy. Fu Qian nodded, feeling reassured. No problem. The situation is still tense, so I need everyone to follow my arrangements from now on. Who do you think you are, giving orders? Slap. A crisp sound cut off young Master Ye's words mid-sentence, and he staggered, almost falling to the ground. As if nothing had happened, Fu Qian slapped young Master Yi, then blocked a punch and a kick from a middle-aged man surnamed Ji before lightly retreating. Following the clash, the middle-aged man's mouth was bleeding, but he still rushed to support young Master Yi. He had already noticed Fu Qian's movements, but the speed was too fast, and he still failed to protect him in time. Just what kind of monster was this guy? The middle-aged man stared at Fu Qian, full of guard. Old Ji. Kill him for me. Young Master Yi struggled to stand, his left cheek burning and nearly numb. He had never suffered such humiliation in his life, driving him into a fury. However, the middle-aged man didn't move and even stopped the young master who wanted to rush forward. Setting aside the fact that this was the Wen family's property, this guy was Wen Li's savior. His strength was terrifying, it was a mystery where he came from. In terms of power, in a fight to the death, the middle-aged man had no confidence in defeating him. He was concerned that the most endangered would be the enraged young Master Yi should they engage. If the opponent was determined to kill, even if it meant getting injured, he likely couldn't protect him. Cough, cough. Seeing the situation getting out of hand, Wen Xiuxian coughed and stood up. He first comforted young Master Yi, then arranged for someone to take him down to rest. Young Master Yi had calmed down slightly by now and gave Fu Qian a look filled with resentment, indicating this wasn't over, before finally leaving to rest, surrounded by others. The butler was organizing people to clean up the mess. At that moment, the entire Wen family estate was a sorry sight, its former glory gone. Not to mention the gaping hole in the house, several of the grand pillars on the square had been broken after Fu Qian and the stone giant's destructive fight. It was a sight of utter desolation and sorrow. As one of the culprits responsible for the current situation, Fu Qian was deeply moved. Just a few days ago, he was just a homebody, not exactly feeble but with nothing more than average physical fitness. And now, in the blink of an eye, he had become a human weapon. Even after the series of battles, Fu Qian still didn't feel tired. The minor injuries he got from the fight with the middle-aged man surnamed Ji had already stopped bothering him. The thug form didn't just grant him strength and speed but also a recovery ability far beyond the norm. He really was no longer in the realm of regular humans. At this time, when Xiuxian finished arranging everything and approached Fu Qian with a smile. Mr. Fu, Captain Gu, please come with me. True to his role as a businessman, his emotional control was indeed at its peak. Captain Gu was still in a state of confusion, but followed Wen Xiuxian inside in a daze. Wen Li's original location had been crushed by the stone columns, now cordoned off. Fortunately, the Wen family had plenty of space, and a room was quickly made available. Mr. Fu, please take a seat. Wen Xiuxian first made sure Wen Li was settled comfortably to rest, then invited Fu Qian and Captain Gu to sit down. We've encountered a lot lately, so we're a bit sensitive. My apologies for any earlier offense. Your help with little Li's safety is greatly appreciated. No need to worry, it's my duty and responsibility, Fu Qian replied, straightening his uniform before continuing the idle chat. It looks like we'll have to trouble Captain Gu further. After probing for a long time and seeing no slips from Fu Qian, Wen Xiuxian had no other options and looked at Captain Gu with earnest sincerity. "You are too polite." Captain Gu was pleasantly surprised and a little overwhelmed. The situation had developed so quickly that, although he was usually adept at handling various scenarios, he now found his mind struggling to keep up. He had been watching Fu Qian intently since earlier, feeling an unprecedented sense of unfamiliarity with his subordinate. He couldn't fathom how this man under his command had suddenly transformed into a transcendent and even twice saved his employer's life in succession. "Mr. Fu, who do you think attacked us today?" Wen Xiuxian turned his head to ask. This was indeed the right person to ask. "I don't know." Fu Qian shook his head. "But it should not be difficult to investigate. Have you encountered that big guy before?" Responding to a question with another question is always a good strategy. "Never seen him before." As expected, Wen Xiuxian's attention was diverted, and he slowly shook his head. "We've been attacked twice before and never encountered someone like him." Today's attack revealed one thing, that the opponents are a very professional team, not mere rabble. Each one is adept at assassination, and their coordination is remarkably precise. This isn't something a makeshift group can achieve. So, although they left behind very little information, it's not impossible to track them down. A transcendent who can morph into a stone giant, someone proficient in hypnosis, a dedicated assassin squad, using these criteria to search, it wouldn't be difficult to determine who they are. "I'll arrange it." Wen Xiuxian nodded, a glint of cold light in his eyes. Though a commoner, having been a wealthy individual for so many years, he had his own pride. Actually, that big, foolish one wasn't the hardest to deal with. Further commented Fu Qian. The one who came to his aid obviously specializes in disguise and infiltration. With so many people in your house, it's likely very easy for them to infiltrate like a sieve. This was indeed true. Sweat beaded on Wen Xiuxian's forehead. "Then what do you think would be safe?" "Simple, you must have a panic room here, right?" Panic rooms are almost a standard feature for the rich and powerful. After all, life is incredibly precious to them. "Ah, indeed there is one." Let Wenli hide in the panic room by herself, minimally reducing the number of people who can come into contact with her, and preferably, no one but me should be allowed in. Wen Xiuxian naturally couldn't accept this suggestion. "Are you really in a position to make such a suggestion, given your unclear background? Wenli still needs to be taken care of now. Then there's no hope. Wait for death. Dad, go and rest. Let me have a chat with Mr. Fu." Seeing that the conversation had come to a halt, Wenli suddenly spoke up. It's okay." Wenli looked at her father and gently shook her head. "Fine." After hesitating for a long time, Wen Xiuxian finally sighed, sending everyone away. Once everyone had left, Wenli stared at Fu Qian's face, her gaze lingering. "Thank you. You've already thanked me before. This time, it's not for saving my life. Thanks for slapping Yi Yang. I've wanted to do that for a long time." Chapter 19, Chapter 19, Chapter 19 Mirror_1. Chapter 19, Chapter 19 Mirror_1. Is the contradiction so significant? Wen Li's words sparked a trace of interest in Fu Qian. Appearance, demeanor, speech. From whichever angle one looked, she was the very model of a damsel from a distinguished family. It was hard to imagine she would speak of slapping someone. "Ha." Wen Li gave a weak smile and sighed. To speak of direct contradiction, it might not be so, but he indeed caused me significant trouble, and he himself is quite disagreeable. Trouble. Fu Qian probably guessed what the issue was. Arranged marriage. Mr. Fu is really intelligent, you guessed it right away. Wen Li looked at Fu Qian with surprise, her face showing admiration. If someone else had been praised like this by a beauty, chances are they would have been quite flattered. Unfortunately, Fu Qian was entirely unmoved by this. Having dealt with young Master Qin for so many years, he was very clear that for such second-generation individuals, commercial expressions were practically a skill. Whether it was surprise or flattery, their credibility was doubtful. "Yes, I know many people envy my background, but being born in such a family, really, a lot of things are out of my control, and sometimes I feel suffocated. Can you understand that, Mr. Fu?" "I can imagine." Fu Qian nodded. but I generally attribute such feelings to having eaten too much and feeling stuffed. Wen Li's face froze. You were born into a wealthy family, not a family of immortals. Did you expect to have no troubles at all? On the bright side, at least you don't have to trade vast amounts of time, energy, or even your body, working yourself to death just for a bite to eat. Even with a full belly, you can occasionally put on an act of being profound. Only after a long silence did Wen Li speak. Mr. Fu, you really see things clearly. Your free and easy nature is enviable. No need to envy, freedom is derived from power. Indeed, surviving today was totally thanks to you, and seeing someone not fall behind Master Ji in a fight is a first for me. Oh. Fu Qian's interest was piqued. What tier is that Master Ji? This, shouldn't you know better than I would? Wen Li looked puzzled. As far as I know, Master Ji was a 6th phase transcendent 5 years ago, and now his power is utterly unfathomable. That middle-aged Mr. Ji was already 6th phase. Fu Qian frowned. After a few exchanges, he was confident that old Ji was no match for him, so by that reckoning, wasn't he at least a 6th phase transcendent as well? Thugs are as terrifying as ever. After reflecting, Fu Qian turned to look at Wen Li. Speaking of which, I want to ask, you're at least supposed to be a transcendent, and according to outside rumors, you're even likely to be a 6th phase, so how can you be fragile to such an extent? That's the frustrating part about the psychic system. Wen Li forced a bitter smile. The rumors are not wrong, I'm indeed close to being 6th phase, but compared to you with your iron bones and copper heads of the physical system, we in the psychic system are just too vulnerable. Transcendents are divided into 9 phases, with 7, 8, and 9 being the initial tier, 4, 5, and 6 the middle tier. Before advancing to middle tier, improvements to the psychic system's vitality are hardly noticeable. And my ability is rather special, almost the least aggressive type within the psychic system, so no need to envy, brainless warriors have always been a man's romance. By the way, what exactly is your skill? Fu Qian was first hearing a complete description of this world's supernatural system, so naturally, he wouldn't miss this chance to learn more. A mirror, you may understand it like that. Wen Li did not conceal her secret. I can sense the emotions of those around me, joy, anger, sorrow, hatred, desire, etc. The emotions of the people around me are like mirrors reflecting onto me. The stronger and closer the emotions, the clearer the reflection. On one hand, it makes me quite perceptive, not easily deceived by others, but at the same time, for a long period, this ability caused me great trouble. I was forced to feel other people's emotions all the time, almost pushing me to the brink of a mental breakdown. In fact, this is also why I detest Yi Yang. When I'm slightly closer to him, what I sense is particularly displeasing. Mr. Fu is different, although your power is too strong for me to sense much, at least one thing I can confirm, that is you truly bear no malice. So that's how it is, it seems you've had a talk with your father just now. Fu Qian said, finding this ability somewhat novel. Of course, otherwise why would my father be at ease leaving? In fact, over the years as my ability has grown, my perception became more sensitive, and while I can slightly influence the emotions of others. Wen Li revealed a playful smile. Now, going against my will has become a rather difficult affair. I see the big picture now. In a sense, the psychic system's abilities still have their unique advantages, providing far greater value in specific situations than the physical system could. However, based on what she could currently achieve, Wen Li's reputation as an imminent 6th phase seemed a bit empty. Sometimes, I truly wish I didn't have such a talent, it invites trouble while failing to protect my own family. Wen Li sighed, again assuming the guise of a pampered young lady. You always have to look on the bright side, if it weren't for that ability, young master, you might not have given you a second glance. Fu Qian's comforting skill was always at hellish levels. Surprise flashed across Wen Li's face. You know about that? Indeed, before I became like this, although there were some business interactions, I was hardly given due respect, let alone such proactive help. But I fear they will be disappointed with my quasi-6th phase status. Chapter 20, Chapter 19 Mirror_2. Chapter 20, Chapter 19 Mirror_2. You shouldn't underestimate yourself, at least the proliferation gene of a middle-tier transcendent is quite valuable. Thank you for your affirmation. Unfortunately, I've always not wanted to owe this favor, otherwise there would have been no room for maneuver, so. Wen Li's expression was unprecedentedly serious. Regardless of whether your assistance was a spur of the moment or there are hidden matters, I sincerely beseech you once again, to lend a hand during the time to follow. Quite sincere, huh? But you might not know, someone has already asked me on your behalf, leaving me no choice but to do the kind of work I hate the most. I've said it before, duty calls, and it cannot be shirked. Fu Qian spoke languidly, telling Miss Wen not to get excited. Speaking of which, the Wen family might not be a prestigious noble family, but they sure have too much money to spend. How come they don't have a single transcendent bodyguard? There are assassins who take money, there must be bodyguards who offer their services for pay. Fu Qian didn't believe all transcendents had such integrity. You're right, there's some hidden affairs in this. Wen Li's expression was somewhat embarrassed. Indeed, we had previously hired a transcendent bodyguard with a hefty sum, one whose strength was not much less than Master Ji's. Unfortunately, he met with an accident not long ago. What kind of accident? He was captured by the night watchman. There's actually such a thing. As capitalists, didn't you do a background check when hiring people? It was urgent, and the strength was undoubtedly our top priority at that moment, although we knew he was always on the night watchman's wanted list. We didn't expect such an incident, and it's very difficult to find another one in a short term. Seems like your relationship with the night watchman isn't that great. Our family business covers a wide range, with some in the gray areas, which might not be well regarded by the night watchman. Wen Li honestly admitted. It's obvious, if the relationship was a bit better, they wouldn't have done something so undermining. Fu Qian sighed deeply, finally understanding why the Wen family was in such a sorry state. The old cynic Captain Gu had speculated before that there might be the night watchman backing them up. Thinking about it now seemed overly optimistic. So today, when you stepped in, I was truly unable to contain the joy in my heart. Thank you very much. Miss Wen thanked him gravely for the third time. Also, regarding the content of our conversation today, please keep it a secret. I don't want the Yi family to have too much of a negative impression before I make my breakthrough. Don't worry, I've always been tight-lipped. Fu Qian promised without hesitation, then lowered his voice. The problem is, have you thought about the fact that our conversation now has been overheard by your admirer? What? Wen Li was immediately shocked, raising her head and looking around abruptly. No need to look, there's someone clinging to the wall outside. Fu Qian continued in a hushed tone, then kicked the bench Wen Li was sitting on. Amidst a scream, Wen Li, along with the bench, flew out. Simultaneously, Fu Qian stood up abruptly and roared. Be careful, there's an assassin. Upon his words, the person clinging to the wall outside, akin to a gecko, paused, then began to move frantically. In fact, not long after sitting down, Fu Qian had noticed someone on the wall outside. It was possibly the effect of increased inspiration, as his perception was now extremely keen. The eavesdropper had been quite careful, not to mention silent in movement, but even using special techniques to flatten themselves against the wall. Even so, in Fu Qian's perception, it was as apparent as an X-ray. He even knew who it was, the little wolf girl he had kicked away the first time he entered the place. Speaking of which, the Wen family was quite unfortunate. Not only had their stronghold been infiltrated like a sieve, but they were also under the surveillance of their prospective in-laws. Holding the intention to see what the visitor wanted to do, Fu Qian hadn't revealed them right away. Now was about the right time to rattle the snake through the grass. With a roar, the alarm bells rang out, and Fu Qian grabbed something from the desk. It was a metal paperweight, exquisitely crafted and impressively large, clearly not cheap at a glance. He held it in his hand, weighing it like a brick, and, in the next moment, Fu Qian hurled it toward the wall. Boom. The Wen family mansion suffered again. Empowered by terrifying strength, the paperweight shot out like a cannonball, easily tearing through the opposite wall. Bricks and chunks of stone struck the swiftly moving figure behind it. Desperate screams echoed as a shadow was heavily thrown down from the wall. If he remembered correctly, wasn't this the fourth floor? By this time, when Xiuxian had rushed over, and seeing the hole in the wall and his daughter on the ground, his expression could only be described as splendid. Such a familiar scene. No mansion is grand enough to withstand this kind of damage. Rest assured, when you see the person on the ground, your face will look even worse. Now, Wen Li, the ever-resilient Kiki, had once again bravely stood up, her expression complex as she quietly comforted her father. As several people descended the stairs together, the infiltrator on the ground was already surrounded. But it seemed irrelevant whether he was surrounded or not, for the person on the ground laid there motionless, mangled. Struck unprotected in a vital spot and then having fallen from the 4th floor, this person was dead beyond doubt. Young Master Yi, who had gone to rest earlier, had long since arrived, and was now staring intently at the body on the ground with a face as dark as coal. The assassin has been slain. Fu Qian, not caring about his darkened face, pointed solemnly at the corpse on the ground, claiming credit. Just now, someone else infiltrated and attempted an ambush, but luckily, I discovered it. No matter what, it was best to firmly establish the identity of the assassin first. Wen Xiuxian's expression was a kaleidoscope of emotions. He wasn't foolish, and he could certainly detect the anomaly in Yi Yang's reaction. And with a little attention, one could notice that one from his entourage was missing. Was there any need to say who the person on the ground was? But indeed, the person was struck from outside the wall, labeling them an assassin posed no issue whatsoever. Wen Xiuxian felt irritated as well. He had just survived an assassination attempt in the daytime, and now, to his annoyance, someone was spying on his own turf. Even with his capacity to endure humiliations, it was difficult for him to maintain a pleasant demeanor at that moment. Thank you, Mr. Fu. Without you, Lil Li might have been in danger again. After mulling it over, Wen Xiuxian chose to express his gratitude earnestly. I didn't expect these people to be so patient, returning after being driven away, truly hard to guard against. After thanking Fu Qian, Wen Xiuxian let out a series of heavy sighs and turned towards Yi Yang and Master Ji. Because of this disturbance, Yi Yang and Master Ji were inconvenienced. Please accept my apologies. It's all right. Young Master Yi didn't respond immediately. It took a tug from Mr. Ji before he almost gritted his teeth and said a word. We heard the alarm and were worried there might be trouble, so we came to see. It's good that everything is fine. Mr. Ji, obviously more seasoned, spoke to Wen Xiuxian with a serious face. No disturbance to speak of, as we are here to help and will do our utmost. Thank you for your efforts. Wen Xiuxian exchanged pleasantries with him, seemingly oblivious to the red and blue locks of hair at the head of the corpse. Fu Qian knew this person had died in vain. He didn't harbor any particular hatred toward Little Wolf Girl that warranted her death. Little Wolf Girl was undoubtedly sent by Yi Yang to eavesdrop, and given Yi Yang's character, the slap from earlier was not something he could simply swallow. Coming to eavesdrop was very likely for Yi Yang's own sake, to understand Fu Qian's background and to find opportunities for slow revenge later. That was a natural human response. But to carry out such tricks at the Wen family's home indicated a fundamental distrust toward Wen Xiuxian and his family. If what Wen Li had said during the day reached their ears, it was difficult to predict their subsequent reactions. If he were to complete his mission, he needed to minimize any potential threats to Wen Li as much as possible. So, for various reasons, it was essential to intimidate them, to make sure they wouldn't dare pull any more stunts in the short term. Chapter 21, Chapter 21, Chapter 20 How did you get along with people _1? Chapter 21, Chapter 20 How did you get along with people _1? By the time the situation was dealt with, dusk had fallen, and the farce had come to an end. The tough day at the Wen family mansion had finally passed. In the lingering glow of the sunset, the luxurious abode was now riddled with scars, its battle damage coating at max. Fortunately, the place was large enough that with some tidying up, it was still habitable, but even so, a couple more events like today's could justify raising it and starting anew. As the chief troublemaker, Fu Qian had successfully earned everyone's respect, fear, through his violent display today. Mr. Fu, you have worked hard today. I have already arranged your accommodation, said Wen Li, looking like she was on her last legs, but still mustering the energy to speak. She was one of the few willing to engage in conversation with Fu Qian. It was nothing. Fu Qian spoke nonchalantly, then saw young Master Yi shiver. Young people these days sure have a lot of spirit. After the extent of the commotion, Fu Qian did not believe in burying the hatchet with a smile. Offend to death then so be it. Whether young Master Yi wanted to flay him alive, Fu Qian couldn't care less. Based on previous events, this young master seemed quite keen on preserving his life. Fu Qian believed that after the incident with the flying corpse from the 4th floor, young master, you would calm down and not make any small moves until he figured out what Fu Qian was all about. That was all that was needed. The best part was that no matter how he investigated, he'd only find out that Fu Qian was a regular bodyguard, which would surely leave him paranoid. With that time, Wenli should have enough to level up. Hopefully, she wouldn't be too disappointing by then. A night without incident. When Fu Qian woke up from the luxurious bed, daylight was already shining brightly. Ever since becoming a transcendent, Fu Qian found himself constantly in a state of abundant energy, making sleep somewhat unnecessary for him. But as a sleep enthusiast, he still habitually rested in bed. The bedroom prepared for his rest, though makeshift, was evidently lavish, not a mere guest room. It wasn't until Wenli walked into the adjacent room yawning that Fu Qian finally confirmed he had been led to the master bedroom of the mansion. It seemed the Wen family truly were frightened. A maid had been waiting outside early, calling Fu Qian over for a meal. As Fu Qian arrived at the dining room, Wenli was gracefully having breakfast, appearing much more refreshed. It was unclear if she had taken his advice, but the number of servants today was noticeably smaller. Listen to advice and eat your fill, Wen Xiuxian was quite pragmatic. Good morning, Mr. Fu, feel free to ask the kitchen to prepare whatever you'd like to eat. Wenli greeted Fu Qian politely, smiling as she explained why Wen Xiuxian was absent. Father has some matters to take care of and left early in the morning. Rich people have their troubles, too. Fu Qian mused to himself, settling down to enjoy a few small dishes. The taste made the trouble worth it. Mr. Fu, regarding the security arrangements, do you see any areas that need improvement? I will have them fully cooperate with you. Wenli showed the proper breeding of a well-born lady, only starting to inquire after finishing her breakfast. There certainly is a lot of room for improvement, so much so that there's no longer a need to improve. Fu Qian didn't even lift his head. He was telling the truth. Wen family's current security might seem tight, but that was under the assumption the enemy was a regular assassin. To a non-human that excelled in stealth and infiltration, it was as if riddled with holes. So you still recommend that I hide in a safe house? Wenli sighed. Due to some reasons, unless it's absolutely necessary, I'd rather not resort to that. I'll discuss it with my father when he returns. As it turned out, the trouble arrived faster than Wen Xiuxian's return. Not long after, a servant rushed in with a tense expression to announce that a special guest had arrived, asking specifically for Fu Qian. Before Wenli could say anything, the door was pushed open from the outside. A woman clad in all black with a poker face walked in. Though her attire was simple, her presence was commanding, like a drawn mace whose path no one dared meet with their gaze. She marched up to the dining table, her sharp eyes scanning over everyone's faces before they settled on Fu Qian. Mr. Fu. That's possible. Group Leader Tan, what brings you here today? The moment he saw who it was, Wenli's expression turned particularly ugly. Seeing her target Fu Qian directly, he couldn't help but speak out as the host. Just a matter I need to discuss with Mr. Fu here. The woman with the surname Tan did not even glance at Wenli while staring down Fu Qian with obvious hostility, gesturing to the side. Mr. Fu, please come with me. The people here are so arrogant, one after another. Fu Qian could naturally tell that this woman was no ordinary person, definitely a transcendent, with quite impressive strength. Could it really be that too much muscle causes one's brain to degenerate? Group Leader Tan, what do you mean by this? Before Fu Qian could respond, Wenli, who was beside him, was already panicking. Mr. Fu is currently working and it is not convenient for him to leave. This is the second time. Is Group Leader Tan targeting the Wen family on purpose? The second time. Fu Qian realized something. The night watchman. MMM. Wenli nodded slightly, not forgetting to introduce her to Fu Qian. This is Ms. Tan Mingxue, the group leader of the second group of the city's night watchman team. We have had some interactions before. Indeed. When the woman entered, Fu Qian had already sensed it vaguely. Last night, before going to sleep, he had taken the trouble to learn a little about the organization with which he had several encounters. In this world, the Night Watchman was one of the largest organizations and a particularly special entity, with almost all things related to transcendental powers under its control. With an exalted status and overwhelming strength, Night Watchman teams spread across various regions, maintaining the order of the entire transcendent world. Almost no one wished to oppose them. In fact, it was because of their existence that ordinary people could survive the struggles of the non-humans and maintain a normal life. No wonder this lady was so brazen. Anyone backed by such an organization could inadvertently develop the habit of being overbearing. As for the interactions mentioned by Wenli, they must not have been pleasant experiences. Fu Qian recalled the incident Wenli mentioned the day before. Having hired a powerful bodyguard, they unexpectedly had him taken away by the night watchman for being unclean. The second time must refer to that incident. How on earth does your family get along with people to deserve such undermining? While Fu Qian was contemplating, Wenli had already started to complain. Group Leader Tan had a reason for her last visit, and after understanding it, we fully cooperated. Today, you should at least give us a reason, right? A reason. Tanming Xue seemed to hear something amusing. Miss Wen is overthinking it, the night watchman isn't bored enough to target your family. As for Mr. Fu, surely you don't think you can kill someone here and act as if nothing happened. Chapter 22, Chapter 22, Chapter 21, How many of you can fight like this _1? Chapter 22, Chapter 21, How many of you can fight like this _1? When did I ever kill someone? Facing Tanming Xue's accusation, Fu Qian asked as if it were nothing. Still playing dumb. Tanming Xue let out a cold laugh. The conflict here yesterday is already common knowledge. You personally killed a transcendent. Do you really want to deny it? I'm sorry, but all matters related to transcendence are under our jurisdiction. Since it involves the death of a transcendent, you'll need to come with me. So you're talking about that? Fu Qian's expression remained utterly calm. Indeed, someone died here yesterday, but he fell to his death from the 4th floor. You can explain that slowly after you come back with me. Tanming Xue spoke coldly, a fleeting murderous aura emanating from her. My patience has its limits. If you continue to be stubborn, don't blame me for not being nice. Group Leader Tan. Wenli was getting a bit anxious at this point. Mr. Fu is a bodyguard we legally hired. The conflict was entirely because an assassin tried to harm me, and Mr. Fu was just fulfilling his duties. How could you be so indiscriminate? Upon seeing Wenli's reaction, Tanming Xue's face softened slightly. We are just asking Mr. Fu to assist with confirmation. If there's no problem, he will be back soon. After all, given the intense fight and the death of a transcendent, we need to ensure everyone's safety. Please understand. This woman seems determined not to leave without taking me today. Fu Qian thought to himself. According to the data collected on the night watchman, they indeed had the right to inquire into any conflict involving transcendence. But with the incident only happening yesterday, at the Wen family mansion, and now she's already here today, Fu Qian didn't believe there weren't other factors involved. Thinking of young Master Yi who hadn't shown up all day, Fu Qian had a hunch. So he still couldn't swallow his pride. It was very likely that after secretly investigating his background and finding nothing, he simply decided to stir trouble and let the night watchman bother him. Even if he couldn't use them to kill for him, the least he could do was to use the night watchman to probe for some of his secrets. Currently, it seemed he only had 2 choices. Choice 1, go with this group leader Tan, leaving Miss Wen here, to rely on a bunch of bodyguards and young Master Yi's people to protect her life for a while. Since the Yi family had intentions of marriage, they would generally not want this future daughter-in-law to die. Choice 2, refuse to cooperate, activate Shura mode, take out this group leader Tanming Xue directly, and then deal with the endlessly coming night watchman one by one, until nobody comes to bother him anymore while he completes his task. That feels a bit too Shura-like. Although Miss Wen's life might not be safe if he left, the success rate of choice 2 was obviously not high. The key point was that Wenli would probably be scared out of her wits and do something unpredictable. In the end, Fu Qian decided to cooperate for the time being and get a feel for the strength of the night watchman in this region. After all, if he really had to take the Shura route, at least he'd have an idea of the strength of his opponents. No problem, then I'll come with you. Under Wen Li's worried gaze, Fu Qian followed Tanming Xue out of the Wen family mansion. In the crowd, Fu Qian spotted Master Ji, who had clashed with him twice yesterday, but young Master Yi was nowhere to be seen. Fearing I would kill him in anger. Fu Qian instantly understood the reason. This person was obviously feeling guilty, worried that Fu Qian might guess it was his doing, and before following Tanming Xue, out of fear, he might lash out and take him down, so he simply opted to hide and not show up. It's possible that right now, he's watching from some window. He really is small-minded and overly cautious. The journey was rather long. After lots of twists and turns, just when Fu Qian was about to lose his patience, the car finally stopped. Please. Tan Mingxue got out of the car first, and Fu Qian followed, seeing the night watchman's base for the first time. This place was much more down-to-earth than he had imagined. Contrasting with the scenic beauty of the Wen family's private villa, the night watchman's base was actually located in the middle of a busy city area. From the outside, it looked quite ordinary, although the area was not small. Only after following Tan Mingxue inside the base did he feel something extraordinary. The building's interior was clearly meticulously arranged, with many areas made of special materials. There weren't many people coming and going, but each of them carried an air of authority and seemed to be of no ordinary strength. Some other relevant personnel will be here shortly. Tan Mingxue led Fu Qian into an office, gestured for him to sit down, and took out an exquisite notebook. Before we proceed, I need to confirm a few simple questions with you. Ask away. Fu Qian looked around as he answered lazily. Is Fu Qian your real name? Theoretically, all transcendent information should be registered internally with the night watchman, but I've checked all the records, and there's never been a record of you. Of course it is. As for why there's no record of me, it might be because I haven't been a transcendent for very long. Oh. Tan Mingxue rolled her eyes. Based on the current information, your strength is at least 6th phase. Are you trying to tell me that you went from an ordinary person to a middle-tier transcendent in just a few days? Can't I? The other night, I was observing the celestial phenomena when suddenly, I had a revelation that gave me insight. Clang. Tan Mingxue's notebook slammed onto the table. After calming down a bit, Tan Mingxue picked up the notebook again. Do you know who you killed yesterday? An assassin. And let me emphasize, I just injured him. It was his own fall that killed him. Moreover, as a professional bodyguard, I was merely fulfilling my duties. Professional bodyguard. Tan Mingxue was now so exasperated she laughed. A professional bodyguard with a monthly salary of 25,000, is that so? Your asking price really isn't high, is it? Slim profit, high turnover, what we're building is reputation. What's going on? Just as Tan Mingxue was about to go ballistic, the office door was pushed open with a creak, and a bespectacled man in his 30s came in. He's completely unreasonable, your turn to ask. Tan Mingxue snorted as she stood up. Masters always have distinctive personalities. The bespectacled man chuckled as he flipped through the notes and extended a hand toward Fu Qian, introducing himself. Mr. Fu, right? I am Qi Shui. Please don't take it the wrong way. The only reason we bothered you today is strictly due to our duties. After all, the sudden appearance of a middle-tier master in our jurisdiction is something we must get under control. As for the conflict, transcendents have strong life force, and fights and killings are inevitable. We can't interfere in every single case. Look, we're all colleagues here, and professional integrity is much better. Fu Qian nodded. You may proceed with your questions. We already have the basic information. The bespectacled man flipped through Tan Mingxue's notes. So, I'll ask the most intriguing question first. How did a master like you end up working as a bodyguard for the Wen family? Entrusted by someone. Who? The bespectacled man suddenly looked spirited. No comment. After asking a few more insignificant questions, the bespectacled man put the notebook aside. Thank you for your cooperation. You may leave now. Hey! Tan Mingxue panicked. How can you let him go? Based on the current data, Mr. Fu's past is quite clean, and the conflict was indeed part of his duties. As for the lack of previous records, now that we have them, it's resolved. The bespectacled man waved his hand to indicate to Tan Mingxue not to say more. Turning his head toward Fu Qian. Mr. Fu, if you have any questions, you can ask us as well. Questions? Fu Qian thought for a moment, then pointed at both him and Tan Mingxue. Inside this base, how many of you are as capable as you two? Chapter 23, Chapter 23, Chapter 22, 100% knockback Constitution _1. Chapter 23, Chapter 22, 100% knockback constitution _1. How many of us are there like this? What do you want to do? Tenming Xue had a wary look on her face. In fact, it wasn't just her, Qi Shui was also completely astonished and couldn't figure out why Fu Qian would ask such a question. Got it, not many. Fu Qian nodded. Oh, why do you say that? Qi Shui became interested. Fu Qian pointed at Tenming Xue. Given her personality, if there were many, her reaction wouldn't be like this, it would probably be more like, I have enough numbers to blast you into dust or something. Ha ha. Qi Shui was stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter, eventually slapping his thighs in sheer mirth, completely disregarding the person with an ashen face beside him. You're not wrong, Qi Shui said after he finished laughing, pushing up his glasses. Ming Xue is the leader of the second group, and I'm responsible for the affairs of the first group. There are quite a few night watchmen in this city, but to be honest, there are indeed not many at our level. But don't say I didn't warn you, our boss, Qi Shui said, pointing upwards. She's on a completely different level than us, you'd best not have any strange ideas. So that's how it is, plenty of minions, single digits of powerful minions, plus a big boss in charge. Fu Qian summarized the situation with gaming language, roughly estimating the scene he was facing in Shura mode. Precious information, his trip here hadn't been in vain. Fu Qian nodded. If there's nothing else, I'll be leaving. It was time to go back, every second he wasted here increased the risk of having to start over. Don't you want to know why the Wen family is in this situation? Qi Shui suddenly said when he saw Fu Qian really getting up to leave. There was indeed a problem, but it was very unfortunate that he really had no interest in knowing. Time was Miss Wen's life, his money, and his mission. However, to avoid arousing unnecessary suspicion, Fu Qian still reluctantly stopped. Let's hear it, but if I remember correctly, Group Leader 10 just said that the Wen family wasn't being specifically targeted. Actually, that's not wrong. There's no targeting, but the Wen family indeed hasn't received any special consideration. As long as we do our official duties by the book, that's enough to give them a headache, Qi Shui said, spreading his hands. Actually, we don't really have any prejudice against Wenli, but the Wen family's business ventures are too widespread, even delving into some gray areas. They're registered with us, and although we don't manage some borderline stuff, we do keep some of the accounts in mind. Only the first sentence of these crap words has any value, Fu Qian glanced at Qi Shui. Is there even one clean aristocratic family out there? Could you guys really be bothered with such trivial matters? Go ahead and tell me, what kind of prejudice do you actually have against Wenli? Qi Shui was taken aback again, then began to laugh, turning his head to Tenming Xue. I'm liking this guy more and more, he's quite powerful, and he's smart too. He's good enough to be recruited as a formal member of the team. Ruthless and mysterious origins, Tenming Xue snorted, giving only a 2-word evaluation. You're right, Qi Shui said, taking out a cigarette from somewhere and taking a drag, immediately entering a pensive state. The problem indeed lies with Wenli. Mental transcendents are not common, and we've actually been paying attention to her for a long time. Although her ability was quite weak in the early stage, this type of ability is still unprecedented and very valuable. As she continued to grow, we discovered more and more surprises, and even made her file a special focus, thinking that when the time was right, we could provide some proper guidance. However, it's regrettable that, not long ago, we received notice that her file's level was adjusted to observe and respond accordingly. Basically, that means to keep observation and not intervene, you understand. Understood. Fu Qian had felt something strange before, but he had not expected there to be such hidden circumstances. With the influence of the night watchman, they certainly wouldn't care about any benefits the Wen family might gain because of Wenli. From holding high hopes to observe and respond accordingly, it could only be due to her own reasons. It seems his guess was not wrong, having any connection to the objects stored in the warehouse was somewhat abnormal. Of course, abnormal or not, he still had to carry out his mission. By the time he returned to the Wen family mansion, it was already noon. Qi Shui and his group were decent enough to send Fu Qian back. Fu Qian had now become a person of great interest within the Wen family mansion, with various versions of the reason he was taken away by the night watchman already circulating. Wenli had been informed early on. She did not rashly come out to meet him but could still be felt sighing with relief through the intercom. Mr. Fu. They didn't give you a hard time, did they? As he walked into the living room, Wenli couldn't wait to greet him. No, Group Leader Tan and the others were very enthusiastic, and we had quite a pleasant conversation. Fu Qian sized up Wenli, making sure she hadn't encountered any problems during his absence. He remembered what Qi Shui had said at the night watchman base. Reliable or not, his mission was to ensure that this young lady successfully advanced to the 6th phase. But according to Qi Shui, she was quite unique. Even the night watchmen had adjusted their expectations, opting to observe and respond accordingly. If she never advanced, was he supposed to remain her bodyguard indefinitely? Quite a pleasant conversation. This comment clearly shocked Wenli. When Tan Mingxue came to take someone away, her attitude had been quite unfriendly. Fu Qian's swift and safe return had already greatly surprised her, and with what he said, it was as if he had been invited as a guest. Well, all right, do you want to rest for a bit? Wenli didn't ask further. She was already very grateful that Fu Qian was able to hurry back so swiftly. There's no need. Fu Qian waved his hand dismissively and looked at Wenli, asking the question he cared about most. When do you estimate you'll complete your advancement? When? Wenli's expression changed. Does Mr. Fu have new arrangements? Don't worry, I have a feeling it won't be long now. I have been at the 7th phase for quite some time. I can feel that I'm only one step away from a breakthrough. But mental series advancements often require a certain opportunity, so it's hard to confirm the exact timing, but it will definitely be in the near future. Once I have advanced to the 6th phase, I will have the means to protect myself and won't delay you for too long. As she was earnestly explaining to Fu Qian, Wenli suddenly got some information that made her face light up with surprise, and she rushed to open the door. Dad, how come you're back so soon? A weary Wen Xiuxian walked in. Things didn't go so well, so I decided to come back early. Wen Xiuxian's mood was obviously down, but seeing his beloved daughter brought a faint smile to his face. Mr. Fu is here too. I heard about the morning incident. It seems they didn't trouble you. Thank you for your efforts these past few days. No problem. Fu Qian silently stepped forward, politely talking to Wen Xiuxian while glancing at Wenli. The latter's initial surprise had vanished, and she was now frowning at her father, her expression filled with perplexity. Something wasn't right. A chill flashed in Fu Qian's eyes, confirming a suspicion he had. The next moment, Miss Wen was kicked and sent flying again. Chapter 24, Chapter 24, Chapter 23 Thug 1/3_1. Chapter 24, Chapter 23 Thug 1/3_1. Almost the instant Wenli was kicked away, a furious power engulfed exactly where she had stood moments before. Fu Qian watched with his own eyes as Wen Xiuxian's head swelled like a balloon until his entire body burst into a cloud of red mist. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. After sending Wenli flying, Fu Qian moved forward to block the angle, and collided solidly with this tornado of flesh and blood. A thunderous tremor erupted, the intense shock making every organ in his body tremble. Not only that, the storm seemed to be mixed with countless tiny spikes, which, fortified by the powerful kinetic energy, frenziedly tore everything around to shreds. 3 seconds later, the storm dispersed. Fu Qian lowered his head and lifted his left hand. Below his shoulder, the skin had completely vanished, exposing flesh riddled with countless holes, in some places even revealing stark white bones. I never even took such severe damage in mortal combat. This thing's destructive power is actually quite impressive. Within the range of the blood-flesh storm, there was nothing left intact, not even the half-wall affected, which had turned into honeycomb coal. These assassins really do have extensive capabilities, able to create something with such strong lethality. However, the injury, though serious, was not fatal. Fu Qian expressionlessly straightened out the exposed blood vessels. The next moment, he kicked through the teetering wall with one foot. Gathering strength and using the recoil of the furious power, he instantly passed through the gap, flashing to the side of a person outside, and kicked out. It's you. It didn't matter whether it was Wen Xiuxian or not, the attack just now was not something a hypnotized commoner could deliver. Fu Qian did not believe that the assassins were so dedicated to their job that they would sacrifice their lives to complete the mission. Someone nearby must be controlling it remotely. So, while he was being showered by the blood-flesh storm, he had all his senses wide open, not missing any trace, and eventually he locked onto a particular aura. At this moment, the owner of that aura was blending in with the bodyguards who had rushed over, making his way outside. Boom. With a kick charged with furious power, it struck with lightning speed and terrifying momentum. The target could no longer pretend, his body twisted, and in an instant, grew longer by a good margin. Then, with an odd pose, he dodged this lethal strike. However, what greeted him was a hand blurred with blood and flesh. Splat. Like a crushed tomato, Fu Qian's nearly fleshless left hand scored a hit with a true 9 sorcery white bone claw on his opponent. Thug, assimilation progress 1/3. With invasion like fire and momentum like thunder, congratulations on beginning to grasp the essence of thug form. The moment his grip went slack and the target stopped struggling, Fu Qian heard a prompt beside his ear. At the same time, a warm current flowed through his body. The sensations from the first use of thug form returned, only far more potent than before. After a surge of violent qi and blood, the exposed bones faintly exhibited a metallic sheen. The next moment, flesh regrew, wounds healed swiftly, and soon the bones were covered once again. Assimilation progress 1/3. Fu Qian took a deep breath, absolutely certain that he had undergone a transformation. If another attack came, he was confident he could dispatch Master Ji within 10 seconds. But by that logic, his thug form was just getting started, and even now, he had only assimilated a part of it. Invasion like fire, momentum like thunder, was it referring to the way he just took out that assassin? It could also be a culmination of all his past performances. And these things that are referred to as the essence of a thug. So, it seems, the way to assimilate thug form is to become like a thug himself. Interesting. 1/3 has already enhanced so much, I wonder what will happen when I achieve full assimilation at 3/3. Fu Qian silently looked forward to it. Throwing the corpse on the ground, he retreated back into the room the way he had come. He glanced at Miss Wenli, who was struggling to get up from the ground. The scope of the flesh storm wasn't too large, and with himself standing in front of her, the lady hadn't sustained much damage. However, there seemed to be blood on her forehead. Could it be from the impact when he had kicked her out? He couldn't expect too much after all. He wasn't a professional nanny, it was unreasonable to guarantee no harm every single time. It had to be said that the one who had died for their cause outside had been quite professional, and extremely discreet. He had felt something was odd about Wen Xiuxian just now, hence he had taken a second look at Wenli. This girl's ability allowed her to sense the emotions of the people around her. Being father and daughter for many years, she should have been able to pick up on any anomalies more easily. Sure enough, it might be even beyond Wenli's own realization, but the perplexed expression on her face indicated that she also subconsciously felt something was not right with Wen Xiuxian. Are you okay? Wenli managed to stand up with the support of the wall, her voice trembling as she asked Fu Qian. Was that? It was probably an assassin. But he looked like father. It's not out of the question that it really was your father. Considering the opponent's skills in hypnosis and disguise, it was indeed quite probable that Wen Xiuxian had been captured and dealt with by them on his way out this morning. Wenli was no fool, there was no need to comfort her with lies. He wouldn't have come back so soon. Wenli mumbled subconsciously, then suddenly froze on the spot, her body rigid as she bent down to pick up something. It was a watch, deformed by the explosion, with countless tiny, honeycomb-like holes on it. A wave of agonizing wails filled the air, and Fu Qian heard a familiar prompt sound in his ears. Containment failed. Sanity shattered, Wenli has lost the potential for advancement. This can actually happen. Back in the warehouse, Fu Qian looked up at the sky speechlessly for a minute, feeling the joy of leveling up slightly diluted. Even with Wenli alive, the mission could fail. Realizing that the deceased was indeed Wen Xiuxian, her emotional breakdown was understandable. But her sanity shattering, had she gone completely mad? Silently choosing the playback of the event, Fu Qian quickly fast-forwarded through his journey thus far and came to a conclusion. Escort missions really shouldn't be undertaken. Thinking back, this mission may not have featured werewolves or evil gods like before, but it was no less perilous. The Wen family might appear glorious on the surface, yet danger lurked in every corner. Wenli herself was as fragile as glass, survival was not an easy feat. Now, there was even the possibility of failing without dying. Protecting two people was definitely more challenging than protecting just one. And neither Wenli nor her father were the type to easily be bossed around, getting them to obediently follow plans was no easy task. The situation was complex. Fu Qian fixed his gaze on the cocoon patterns of black and white on the mist gate. When faced with an issue so entangled and full of pitfalls at every turn, the best solution wasn't to stubbornly proceed but to change the approach. For example, Shura mode. 1 SAN point consumed, attempting containment again. 1%, 3%, 10%, 50%, 98%, 100%, containment scene loading complete. Don't look around. Captain Gu's familiar voice came through. Looking at the intact Wen family mansion, Fu Qian took a deep breath. Chapter 25, Chapter 25, Chapter 24 Mindset determines the way out, pattern determines the outcome _1. Chapter 25, Chapter 24 Mindset determines the way out, pattern determines the outcome _1. This was a race against time. Fu Qian kicked down the stone columns to trigger the alarms again, proceeding deftly and swiftly. This time, he arrived in front of Wen Li's room in less than 5 minutes. Kicking the door in, blowing up bowls, and rescuing the person all in one breath. However, this time he didn't kick Wen Li aside to face the javelin-like stone column. Taking a deep breath, a savage force converged in his right hand, and as the stone column flew towards him, Fu Qian punched out directly. In the deafening boom that followed, dust filled the air. The stone column, thicker than a man's embrace, was hammered into thousands of pieces, raining down like hail within the room. Fu Qian withdrew his right hand and turned to look at the ash-covered people in the room. Silence fell as everyone witnessed a scene akin to the descent of a god, their ability to think seemingly halted. Good, that was exactly the effect he wanted. May I ask? Wen Xiuxian was the first to snap out of it, carefully observing Fu Qian's face as if weighing his words. Sir, what's going on here? There's no time to explain. Fu Qian grunted, adopting the demeanor of a wise man with his hands behind his back, signaling Wen Xiuxian to look at the stone giant that had appeared in the courtyard. It's urgent, lead the way to the bunker, or your daughter is as good as dead. This. Wen Xiuxian's instinct was to deny, but recalling the terrifying scene of Fu Qian's stone-shattering punch, he swallowed his words. Although he had seen opulent bunkers built by wealthy elites before, when Fu Qian saw the bunker's massive metal door, nearly 2 meters thick, slowly opening, he realized he had underestimated the extent of their fear of death. This is it. Wen Xiuxian pointed inside the metal door. Once activated, this door can only be opened from the inside, it's impossible to open from the outside. The supplies inside are also sufficient to last a very long time, but after recovering from the initial shock, Wen Xiuxian started to hesitate again. Having a stranger suddenly appear in your house, insisting on ushering you into a bunker without a word of explanation, would make anyone suspicious. What's more, the stranger was dressed in a standard security uniform, the words "Gui" on his chest shining brightly. This had to be a transcendent of at least 6th phase, right? How come I wasn't aware that this security company was so formidable? Do we really need to hide in here? Who are these people after all? People capable enough to kill you all, and it's not we. Fu Qian pointed behind Wen Xiuxian. Only Wen Li and I will enter, everyone else leave. Without my command, no one is allowed to approach, or they'll face summary execution. Who the hell do you think you are, giving orders like that? As Wen Xiuxian stood dumbstruck, unable to speak, a voice roared from behind. Young Master Yi, who had rushed over upon hearing the commotion, could not hold back any longer. He probably hadn't seen what Fu Qian did just moments earlier. Fu Qian spared him a glance. Compared to Wen Xiuxian and the others, the group accompanying young Master Yi looked a lot cleaner. They must have only just entered the Wen family mansion when he smashed the stone column. You don't want to die, do you? Fu Qian didn't pay him any mind and turned to Wen Li instead. Miss Wen had her head and face drenched with poison soup and then washed with lime. She looked quite pitiful at the moment. Even so, her beauty could not be concealed, and she now had an added touch of vulnerability that made her all the more appealing. No wonder young Master Yi was quick to protest upon hearing Fu Qian's suggestion. Wen Li, having had a scare not long ago, also showed a different kind of hesitation in her eyes. Can we go somewhere else? No. Confirming that her will to live was strong and that she wasn't on the verge of a mental breakdown, Fu Qian unceremoniously kicked her into the bunker and immediately activated the switch. How dare you? A roar came from behind. Young Master Yi, completely ignored, lashed out. A fierce gust of wind raced towards Fu Qian's back. Perfect. He stomped a deep pit into the alloy floor, using the recoil to meet the oncoming attack head-on. Be careful. A silhouette launched itself forward, reaching ahead of young Master Yi, attempting to intercept Fu Qian. I've been waiting for you. Master Ji, who had been silently posing as an expert, finally couldn't help himself. Facing an attack many times more fierce than young Master Yi's, Fu Qian didn't hesitate to meet it head-on. Fists and feet collided, and energy surged in all directions. The power from his recent upgrade sent Master Ji flying several meters away. It wasn't until then that young Master Yi's belated attack arrived. Fu Qian didn't dodge or evade, slapping young Master Yi's face directly, not only interrupting his attack but even sending him flying. He's beyond what we can handle. After landing and falling into a frenzy, young Master Yi was grabbed by Master Ji. Hurry and call the night watchman. The latter quickly spat out 2 sentences, then vomited a mouthful of blood with a wah. Undoubtedly, as the top expert present, his judgment was not off the mark. The metal door slowly closed, no one daring to block it any longer. Standing behind the door, Fu Qian looked at young Master Yi, his face a mix of fear, resentment, confusion, and various other emotions, and felt a strange sense of what the husband just saw. Imagination indeed is the source of filth. Mr. Fu is entirely about healing and saving people. Please refrain from conjecturing with such vulgar plot lines. Creak. With that final noise, the metal door finally shut completely, and the safe room fell silent. Fu Qian turned around. The space inside was quite spacious, with the Wen family clearly having invested a lot here. Wenli had already gotten up, now leaning against the wall, sitting there. After his upgrade, he had more control over his strength, sure that his kick hadn't caused her any harm. As their eyes met, Fu Qian sensed something was off. This woman had even taken the time to wipe her face in the midst of everything. I can feel it, you bear me no ill will. Wenli's voice trembled, but she still spoke while catching her breath. Can you tell me why you are doing this? To save your life, I've told you before. If it's with good intentions, can't we communicate in a more gentle way? We can't. Fu Qian's face was expressionless. In cycles you're unaware of, the gentle approach had already been tried. Of course, that was only relatively gentle. Then, may I ask how long we will stay here? Wenli suddenly remembered another question. Fu Qian raised a finger. A week. It's not going to be a month, is it? Wenli's expression was quite resistant. No. Fu Qian shook his finger. 1 day. Just 1 day. Wenli's eyes lit up, clearly surprised by the answer. Does that mean the assassins will give up after today? No, it means you have 1 day to break through. Fu Qian again gestured with his finger. From now, start comprehending. If by this time tomorrow you haven't reached the 6th phase, I'll strip you bare and throw you out. Crying counts against the time too. Chapter 26, Chapter 26, Chapter 25. There wasn't much time left for her _1. Chapter 26, Chapter 25. There wasn't much time left for her _1. Nothing is greater than the liberation of the mind. Contrary thinking is very important. After previous failures, Fu Qian's approach this time was very simple. There is no such thing as a thief-proof strategy that can last 1,000 days. He no longer thought about how to ensure Wenli's survival but instead placed her in an absolutely safe spot to allow her to complete her promotion as quickly as possible. An old saying goes, grant time for tasks, rather than granting tasks time. Wenli took a full 10 minutes to adjust her emotions, but even though she stopped crying, it was clear that she was still resistant. I don't understand. She said in a hoarse voice. You don't need to understand, you just need to make a choice. Make use of every second to complete your promotion, or end up naked on tomorrow's news headlines. Also, let me remind you that even if you die here, it won't change how I handle things tomorrow. Fu Qian reminded the beauty of the cruel reality she faced. A beauty who wouldn't forget to wipe her face even in a life-or-death situation. He believed her potential was limitless when faced with such a threat. Can you at least tell me why you're doing this? Wenli obviously had sound logical thinking and quickly came to terms with her fate. Still, she couldn't help but ask the question in her mind. Yeah, why are you doing this? To save your own life? He had indeed saved her more than once. But why make such an excessive request? A pervert who enjoys playing with human nature. You might be overthinking it. I was just passing by and noticed your unique bones, indicating you're a cultivation prodigy. I took a special interest to enlighten you a bit and grant you an opportunity. I don't want this opportunity, is that okay? What the heavens offer, you can't refuse. But, my abilities are greatly affected by my emotions. I really don't have the confidence to ascend under these circumstances. Didn't I already slap young Master Yi to cheer you up? Why would I be happy about that? Ah, how do you know that? In the end, Miss Wen was forced to accept her fate and gradually calmed down. Sitting upright, with eyes slightly closed, she adjusted her breathing. In the quiet space, her whole being seemed somewhat ethereal for a moment. Indeed, dealing with a smart person is simple. Fu Qian looked at Wen Li, who sat with her back to him, and felt reassured. A gem cannot be polished without friction, you being so ambitious puts me at ease. Wen Li's seated body visibly shivered. Just a friendly reminder, you have 23 hours and 35 minutes left. Seeing that Wen Li's shoulders twitched slightly as if she might be crying again. He nodded in satisfaction once he was sure she would not slack the slightest, then stood in place and closed his eyes. He wasn't planning to sleep, on the contrary, he could be said to have all his senses heightened, covering every corner. Wen Xiuxian had declared this place as secure as Fort Knox, but that was based on his own common sense. Fu Qian had witnessed the lightning railgun, and in his view, the defenses were merely sufficient to avoid some minor troubles. Like right now, for instance. All of a sudden, Fu Qian opened his eyes and blew a breath towards the space in front of him. An almost imperceptible distortion appeared in the air, a nearly transparent filament, which drifted aside with his breath. Without a sound, a deep gouge appeared on the wall. The original target of the thing had been his neck. The next instant, the air stirred again, and more than 10 of the same thin threads wrapped towards him from all directions. Fu Qian, however, made no move this time, letting them wrap around him. The incredibly sharp threads swiftly enveloped him from head to toe, and in the next moment, they constricted inward, intending to grind him into pieces. Feeling the threads nearly cutting into his flesh, Fu Qian took a deep breath. In the next instant, the sound of snapping filled the air as the threads entwined around his body broke piece by piece, scattering into the atmosphere. "I've found you." At the same time, Fu Qian leaped high, tearing open the ventilation duct overhead. More of those fine threads tried to wrap around his hand but were seized in his grasp and yanked out forcefully. Humph. A figure leaped out from the ventilation shaft, glaring at Fu Qian. It was actually an acquaintance. Looking at the poker-faced middle-aged woman before him. "Group Leader Tan, you've aged prematurely." Fu Qian blew at the broken threads in his hand toward her. With their power gone, the threads were no longer transparent but had turned into gray-white strands of hair. Looking at the noticeably shorter hair on Tan Mingshua's head, if it wasn't for an accident with her hairdresser, it was quite clear where these came from. The night watchman arrived quite promptly. Recalling Mr. G's recent impersonation of the Jade Emperor, Fu Qian couldn't help but admire their efficiency in summoning help. "Who are you?" The impact of age on a woman is truly terrifying. Originally Tan Mingshua's expression was a mix of 3 parts solemnity and 2 parts confusion. After Fu Qian's comment, it almost entirely shifted to murderous intent. A tangible aura of killing intent crazily spilled out from her. Fu Qian remained unperturbed. Judging from past interactions, this woman had a rather explosive temper. Given the current situation, no matter how one looked at it, it seemed like he'd kidnapped Miss Wen of the Wen family and injured innocent bystanders. The only possibility for a peaceful exchange would be to surrender and go with her willingly. And that was a condition he could not accept. Better to enrage this woman, and in her state of infuriation, she might reveal more flaws which could be useful. "Group Leader Tan just tried to put me to death, and you still don't know who I am." Fu Qian blinked. "There's a problem with your law enforcement attitude. That's not for you to judge. Answer my question or leave your last words, choose one," Tan Mingxue said with an icy gaze. Despite her fury, she was a seasoned transcendent and did not lose her composure further, much to Fu Qian's disappointment. "Ah." Fu Qian ignored her and stretched a lengthy yawn. "I choose neither." "Obstinate fool." Tan Mingxue didn't speak further, and in the next moment, her hair moved on its own without wind, spreading out in all directions. Standing straight as if charged with static electricity. The tips of her hair once again extended and turned into those transparent threads, almost enveloping the whole room. As the threads waved, they sliced and stirred the air time and again. The entire room became an invisible meat grinder. One wrong step would lead to being hacked to pieces. If you're going to play dirty, you can't blame me. Fu Qian extended his arms in parallel, doing a chest-expanding exercise. Need to wrap things up quickly. Miss Wen's attention had clearly been drawn by the arrival of reinforcements. Although she still sat there, she was no longer concentrating and even sneakily glanced backwards. He needed to help her focus solely on the task at hand. After all, she didn't have much time left. Chapter 27, Chapter 27, Chapter 26 ing Jian _1. Chapter 27, Chapter 26 ing Jian _1. Time is money. Having finished his stretching, Fu Qian grinned at Tan Mingxue. But don't worry, you'll soon be freed from such tedious matters. Tan Mingxue responded simply, her hair quivered, and countless fine strands moved toward the center, cutting towards Fu Qian as the radius. The same move wouldn't work on a saint fighter. Fu Qian took another deep breath and lifted his right foot. Boom. A foot powered with furious strength stomped onto the ground, the exploding momentum raced outwards, blowing away the myriad of thin strands in the air. Tan Mingxue's signature skill was naturally not that simple. The strands swirled and rolled back, but this lasted only for a breath before gathering again. A single breath was enough. A grating metallic ripping noise sounded as Fu Qian forcefully tore off the tabletop next to him. Almost everything inside the safe house was made of special metal, and this tabletop was even more excessively solid metal. It was very heavy in hand. Seeing this, a fluctuation of emotion finally appeared on poker-faced Tan Mingxue. It's too late for regrets now. Fu Qian didn't give her the chance to show off her skills, lifting the heavy tabletop to his chest. He turned, then let go. The next moment, the tabletop became a flying shield. With unstoppable kinetic energy, it flew towards Tan Mingxue's head. At the same time, Fu Qian's left hand spread open, silently firing 5 air bullets. Tan Mingxue's long white hair almost instinctively gathered in front of her in an instant, converging into a ball to attempt blocking the seemingly all-destroying tabletop. Fragments filled the air, the tearing sound was incessant. The sharpness of the threads was staggering. The seemingly indestructible metal tabletop was instantly split into quarters and forcefully cut into fragments. Sharp, but pointless. Fu Qian was right. Even if reduced to smithereens, every metal fragment still followed its original trajectory, resolutely continuing towards Tan Mingxue's head. They even turned into a spray of shrapnel due to the fragmentation. Tan Mingxue clearly knew this too, as she awkwardly moved several meters laterally, narrowly dodging this storm of deadly needles. The metal shrapnel smashed directly into the wall behind her, creating a honeycomb pattern of deep pits. However, the next second, the pupils of Tan Mingxue, who just avoided a fatal shot to the head, suddenly enlarged, and her nearly unbalanced body shifted laterally again. Even so, an invisible bullet still struck her waist, splattering blood. Not bad. To think she didn't fall. As expected of the night watchman leader, she is much stronger than that Mr. G. Huff huff. Panting heavily, one hand covering the wound on her waist, Tan Mingxue's face was extremely unsightly. When she first received the news, she had heard a general description, but she never expected this guy to be much more terrifying than imagined. What kind of monster is this? Ambush, despicable and shameless. Someone who uses that thing as a weapon doesn't seem qualified to talk about me. Fu Qian pointed at her hair. Are you ready? Ready for what? Tan Mingxue had no interest in talking to this guy, but she didn't mind if she had a chance to catch her breath and tend to her wounds. Last words. Fu Qian slowly spoke 2 words, but his eyes weren't on her. Instead, he was staring at Wenli in the corner. At that moment, Wenli was turning her head away, her mouth wide open in an "oh" shape, as if unable to accept what had just happened. As their eyes met, Wenli, as if electrocuted, abruptly turned her head back, shutting her eyes tight, focusing inward. Who on earth are you? Tan Mingxue uttered the classic line of impending doom. A hermit from beyond this world. As Fu Qian replied, he picked up an ashtray from the ground. This had just fallen from the table. Hold the line, I'll rescue him first. Just then, a dark shadow flashed overhead, as someone actually leapt down. Around 30 years old, wearing a black top, with gold-framed glasses. Qi Shui. Seeing the newcomer, Tenming Shui almost instantly regained her strength, her voice filling with momentum. The ferocity and power demonstrated by her opponent just moments earlier had nearly made her lose confidence. Although she felt it was unnecessary, as she watched Qi Shui charge toward Wenli, she still bit her teeth and once again mobilized all her transparent filaments to attack Fu Qian. Clang! A loud noise echoed, and Qi Shui's figure stopped abruptly, standing a few meters away from Wenli. In front of him, the wall was deeply indented by an ashtray that Fu Qian had thrown. You'd better stay away from there. Fu Qian, dodging Tenming Shui's attacks with a leisurely stroll, held 2 table legs he had just pulled out and walked up to him. Turning his head towards Wenli, who was almost standing up. Do you really think he's here to save you? What do you mean? Wenli had been thrilled to see new reinforcements arrive, nearly standing up with a shudder. But now, Fu Qian's words left her baffled once again. Fu Qian said nothing but pointed to her head. This is. Realizing her own panic, Wenli took a breath to calm her emotions. The next moment, she took a step back in horror, staring at Qi Shui, who was not far from her. You're not. Who are you? I am not. Qi Shui suddenly revealed a ferocious smile, his facial features quickly melting and morphing, and in the blink of an eye, he became another man's face. Ignoring Wenli, he turned to look at Fu Qian. I'm a bit curious, how did you know? Do I even need to ask? This one here was the one who took the job to kill you. Fu Qian replied to the dumbfounded Wenli on the side. You really are popular, both those who want to kill you and those who want to save you are eager to come in. As for how I knew. Fu Qian then turned back to the fake Qi Shui. Guess, he. Of course, Fu Qian wouldn't tell him that he could recognize him because he had killed him once before and had memorized his scent. That's right, this guy was the one who had controlled Wen Xiuxian last time. My disguise was absolutely perfect. The man gritted his teeth. Indeed very similar, look at that brainless one over there, didn't she completely fail to notice? Fu Qian pointed to Tenming Shui, whose face turned a deep red in an instant. What's your name? After mocking Tenming Shui, Fu Qian shifted his attention back to Assassin Brother. If you want to keep it confidential out of professional ethics, that's fine too. Your characteristics are still quite clear, and I'll just look it up after I finish you off. This guy caused him to fail the mission. Last time due to Wenli's shattered psyche, today he was certainly not going to get away. Ing Jian, I am indeed doing this for money. The man looked at Fu Qian and started to laugh. You're strong, and I indeed have no confidence that I can beat you, but if you really want to kill me, I advise you not to be impulsive. Rip. He tore open the upper part of his shirt. Chapter 28, Chapter 28, Chapter 27 Scarlet Frenzy _1. Chapter 28, Chapter 27 Scarlet Frenzy _1. In a narrow room where a fight could break out at any moment, a man suddenly tore his shirt to shreds. The action of Ing Jian was undoubtedly horrifying, causing Fu Qian to frown. Even more horrifying was the body revealed underneath the torn clothes. A web of dark red blood lines covered his entire upper body, deeply etched into each piece of flesh. With every breath he took, the blood lines seemed to wriggle slightly, as if they could come to life and take flight at any moment. Scarlet fever. At this moment, Tenming Shui behind him started shouting. As expected of group leader Tan, you recognized it at a glance. Ing Jian wore a look of pride, flashing a provocative smile at Fu Qian. This should help cool you down, right? Mysterious master from parts unknown. It won't. Fu Qian coldly flexed his wrists. If you have nothing else to say, consider this your last words. Wait a minute. This time it was Ing Jian and Tenming Shui both shouting together. Seeing that Fu Qian was really preparing to kill, their reactions were remarkably in sync. The smile on Ing Jian's face had frozen. Are you crazy? You'd rather die with me than let me go. Are you trying to get us all killed? Tenming Shui was also a mix of shock and anger. If you kill him, once the scarlet fever spreads, we'll all be dead. Is this thing that powerful? Fu Qian frowned. You don't recognize scarlet fever? Tan Mingshue's mouth hung open, incredulously staring at Fu Qian. I don't. I thought he was undressing to show me his scars, to tell me he's a wounded soldier fighting on, determined in spite of disabilities. Determined in spite of disabilities, my ass. Tan Mingxue and Ying Jian both felt like spitting blood. Scarlet fever, you can think of it as a type of poison, as well as a curse. Finally calming down, Tan Mingxue quickly explained. Once infected, the blood in the body gradually heats up until it boils. As the flesh throughout the body decays, blood vessels will gradually move to the surface, forming these blood-red webs. It's said that if the host is strong enough, these vessels can completely separate from the body after death, becoming independent entities, even possessing the characteristics of truly being alive. This thing is extremely infectious. If you kill him here, it will fill the space instantly, and none of us will be able to escape. However, it's not without its benefits. After being infected, it significantly enhances speed, strength, and overall combat ability, to some extent acting like a stimulant. Taking a deep breath, Tan Mingxue looked at Ying Jian. Worthy of being the renowned shadow of obliteration, able to obtain such a thing. This thing is very expensive, it took a lot of effort to get, and I never planned to use it here. Finding a sympathetic ear in Tan Mingxue's words, Ying Jian regained some confidence and snorted. Unfortunately, an unexpected variable has arisen, and I've had to use it as insurance. Have you not considered the consequences of what you're doing? Tan Mingxue gritted his teeth. Don't worry, if I dared to use it, I'd have made sure to take full measures. After I send her off, there will be plenty of time to deal with this trouble. Ying Jian gestured towards Wenli, but his gaze was fixed on Fu Qian. Shadow of obliteration, sounds like a group. Fu Qian ignored him, looking instead at Tan Mingxue. That's right, a notorious group of assassins, 3 transcendents in total. They're responsible for many bloodbaths and have always been on the night watchman's wanted list. Let me think, there is also a stoneman who can enlarge his body, and a professional who is good at hypnosis and poisoning. That's right, those 3 always act together, with Ying Jian being the absolute core. I see, that all lines up then. Fu Qian nodded, satisfied. You 3 brothers owe me too many SAN points. Though I don't know where you came from, you are undoubtedly very strong, and I admit I'm no match for you, even with the addition of scarlet fever. Ying Jian looked at Fu Qian. But now, the power has returned to my hands. And I have to thank you for bringing people here, allowing the scarlet fever to maximize its effect. Now you only have 2 options, step aside and let me kill Wenli, or kill me and we'll all die together, and Wenli will still die. I think even a child would make this choice. Of course, we can also keep this standoff going, but in no more than an hour, the scarlet fever in my body will erupt, and the outcome will still be the same. Do you hear me? After Ying Jian finished speaking at length, Fu Qian instead turned to Wenli and shouted. You're going to die, how does it feel? Wenli's body shuddered again, barely managing to stand by leaning on the wall. Of course, her feelings were terrible. Today, far too much had happened. Since a while ago, a series of changes had occurred in the blink of an eye, and her emotions were like a roller coaster. First, she was poisoned, then she was rescued, followed by being held hostage by her rescuer, and then informed she only had 1 day to live. Fortunately, the night watchman arrived in time to rescue her, but the person holding her hostage was too strong. Just as reinforcements arrived and hope appeared, another night watchman turned out to be an assassin in disguise. Now she was fully caught in a no-win situation, and for a moment she felt utterly hopeless and exhausted. What does waiting for death feel like? Tell me. Fear, and perhaps a hint of relief, Wenli inhaled, her voice trembling. You can mock this weakness, but I am not one of you, accustomed to life and death, please forgive me for not being able to face it calmly. Very good, you are honest enough. Fu Qian didn't ridicule her as expected, instead, he praised her. Now, watch closely. The next moment, Fu Qian's figure disappeared from where he was. You. A strong sense of crisis hit Ying Jian, and even before he could dodge, his neck was grabbed by an iron pincer-like hand, and he was slammed against the wall behind him with a clang. Fu Qian, don't be rash. This scene made Tan Mingxue turn pale instantly, unconsciously stepping back several paces. Qi Shui will bring people over soon. Don't fool yourself. You cannot hear what is said inside from the outside. Are you sure that after this Qi Shui arrives, they will still look for the night watchman? Now, would you like to hear my opinion? Fu Qian, holding Ying Jian by the neck, slowly lifted him into midair with a smile on his face. Using mutual destruction as a bargaining chip to complete your mission, it looks courageous. Unfortunately, your fearlessness is based on the belief that you will absolutely not die. That is completely different from true bravery. Look at you now, even when you have fallen into my hands, you subconsciously dare not fight back, afraid that the thing on your body will explode. Hasn't this helped you recognize your true nature? Fu Qian's grip tightened, and Ying Jian's blood vessels visibly twitched as if they might burst open at any moment. We can talk. With his last ounce of strength, Ying Jian barely spat out a few words. Mutual destruction is unnecessary. You still don't understand. It's very necessary, extremely necessary. Fu Qian shook his head as he looked at Wenli. Do you understand now? The fear of dying every second surged in Wenli's heart. Yet seeing Ying Jian, who had been so arrogant just moments before, being held like a dog in someone's hand, gave her an odd sense of relief. Feeling the violent shift in her emotions. The next moment, Wenli fell into a strange peace. I seem to understand. Chapter 29, Chapter 29, Chapter 28 Swallowing _1. Chapter 29, Chapter 28 Swallowing _1. With Wenli's words, a silent storm swept through the entire space before quickly dissipating into nothingness. In terms of intensity, the impact was no more than a breeze against the face, but Fu Qian felt that something was different. Before he could fully savor it, a non-human screech echoed through, causing his eardrums to ache. The Ying Jian he was choking in his hand began to struggle violently. Has it gone mad from fear? Fu Qian glanced at it. The top-tier assassin who had just been suggesting a negotiation now had bloodshot eyes and a throaty growl like that of a beast, almost heedlessly twisting its body. A snapping sound was heard. The Ying Jian, which had all along been unable to break free, suddenly had its neck broken. What was more bizarre was that the break was already dry as kindling, without any blood flowing out. The now beheaded Ying Jian did not stop struggling, in fact, its movements became even more frenzied. As the sound of wind rang out, Fu Qian twisted his head, dodging a claw aimed at his own skull. The missed claw, under the force of its momentum, led to the already decaying arm breaking off as well. Just as before, no blood flowed out, but the dark red streaks of blood that had covered the surface of the arm detached all at once. Then came the shoulder, the chest, the upper body. Like a cicada shedding its shell, the dark red bloodlines pulled themselves out from the corpse of the Ying Jian, bit by bit, and quickly slid onto the wall, tightly clinging to it. With the Ying Jian dead beyond dead in his hand, Fu Qian threw the remains aside. At this very moment, his head felt as if a grenade had gone off inside it. An extremely violent urge to slaughter filled his mind, stimulating every nerve, and shaking his thoughts to the brink of collapse. Every cell in his body became agitated, as if only the bloodiest of killings could quell it. Hiss! Taking a deep breath, Fu Qian looked back. Wenli was standing still with her eyes tightly shut. Still pale and frail, but the aura she now gave off had visibly changed, enshrouded with a hint of mystery. Further away, Tenming Xue had completely collapsed, hugging herself tightly and trembling in a corner. Countless transparent strands formed from her hair were chaotically entwined around her body, preventing anything from approaching. Could that invisible storm amplify a person's emotions? Fu Qian's mind stirred, trying to analyze the current situation with the remnants of his reason. Clearly, the Ying Jian had been affected. Previously, it was only focused on escaping, so it had just now desperately tried to break free from his grip. Exponentially unexpected was that Tenming Xue was the same. That woman was far less brave than she appeared. And to think she's a night watchman. As for Wenli, the storm had obviously been released from her, which made her the source of the anomaly. From this perspective, his plan to stimulate Wenli with the pressures of death and fear had succeeded. Although the mission's success notification had not yet come, Wenli was clearly undergoing a transformation. As to whether this was the leveling up opportunity she mentioned, that remained to be tested. Crack! With a muffled sound, Fu Qian's right hand was forcibly broken. There was no choice. Had he not done it, he would have already pounded the people around him into mincemeat. However, within a matter of seconds, the broken hand firmly healed. Breaking Wenli would make it stop. In the midst of cracking sounds, Fu Qian broke one hand after another, standing still and forcing himself to calm down. Breaking Wenli was easy, but the difficulty was not to hurt her, physically. Just then, a wave of crimson turmoil rolled before his eyes. Amidst a bout of shaking, the thing that had detached itself from the body of Ying Jian on the wall had curled into a spiked ball. Not only that, but the ball was expanding wildly, countless blood-colored vessels twining together, corroding and devouring everything they encountered. The closest to it was Wenli, who had remained unmoving. In 10 seconds at most, this person would breathe their last and the young genius would perish. Fu Qian quickly made a judgment. But if he smashed this thing, the crimson fanaticism would disperse. He didn't care for himself, but the question remained whether Wenli, even though she had leveled up, could survive was still an unknown. The moment the two choices appeared in his mind, Fu Qian felt his brain become a muddle, barely able to think. Indeed, the emotions of indecision had also been amplified. He watched as the thing grew wildly, expanding several times in the blink of an eye, now only a step away from Wenli. To kill it without breaking it was a bit complicated. The more stringent the requirements, the broader the thought process had to be. Fu Qian took a step forward, and the next moment, he completely released the suppression of his frenzied killing intent. Crackle! A burst of blood light, and his right hand, which had been restored, left a deep, unfathomable wound on his own chest. Driven by the frenzy of the killing intent, his body's metabolism was activated to the extreme. Almost in an instant, the cells at the wound grew wildly, turning into sharp fangs. Inhaling deeply, the split in his chest rapidly tore open wider, and in half a second, it turned into a gaping maw full of sharp teeth. Fu Qian opened it towards the dark red mass. The mass, now several times larger, had no chance to avoid and was swallowed whole. The mouth snapped shut, and the mass began to struggle fiercely. However, no matter how much it lurched from side to side, it was still firmly suppressed by the frenzied state of the cells, finding no way out at all. After who knows how many collisions, the mass finally burst and disintegrated. A scorching red mist escaped, yet it was still locked tightly in Fu Qian's chest, not a wisp getting out. Half a minute later, Fu Qian stepped forward and kicked Wenli's body. Ah! Wenli let out a scream, opened her eyes, and jumped up from the ground. Seeing her get up so briskly, there was no need to ask, she had definitely reached the 6th phase. Fu Qian could feel the frenzy inside him dissipate in an instant, it was indeed because of her. Leveling up in the psychic domain is such a hassle. Mr. Fu, thank you for your help. Looking around, Wenli seemed to understand what had happened. A look of surprise appeared on her face, and she bowed deeply to Fu Qian. But Fu Qian didn't engage in conversation. Instead, he stared at Wenli's eyes, which were now much deeper than before, while a voice echoed in his ears. Wenli's death, containment failed. The next moment, the scene in front of him rapidly fell apart, and Fu Qian was back in the familiar warehouse. Evaluation, madness to the extreme. Kill, Ying Jian X1. Special kill, Crimson Angel X1. Special kill reward, Tyrant's Fist. Current SAN points, 33. Would you like to play the event recap? To think this could also fail, his intuition wasn't wrong, this mission was much harder than it appeared on the surface. Fu Qian took a breath but didn't do anything like smashing the keyboard, instead, he stood in place and directly chose to review the incident. He needed to confirm something. Wenli was standing right in front of him, having successfully advanced to the 6th phase, yet the prompt was death and containment failure. Unless she was not Wenli. Skipping ahead all the way to the end, Fu Qian watched Wenli bow and then stand up. The same face, the exact same expressions, but compared to before the upgrade, there was an extra hint of evil in the depths of her eyes. Chapter 30, Chapter 30, Chapter 29, It's Impossible to Work Overtime _1. Chapter 30, Chapter 29, It's Impossible to Work Overtime _1. Tyrant's Fist, Weapon. Effect, can unleash the Scarlet Whip to ravage enemies, each lash causing the target to lose their sanity. The Tyrant's Fist usually takes the form of a whip. Fu Qian looked at his special kill reward. It was the first time he had received a weapon after so long. But the appearance of this weapon really challenged one's imagination. With such a domineering name as the Tyrant's Fist, it was actually a ring. This ring was clearly not made of metal, but rather of numerous lustrous fibers twisted together, its whole body a dark red, and even a bit warm to the touch. Crimson Frenzy. It was really hard not to associate it with that thing. Fu Qian had never worn a ring in his life. He picked up the Tyrant's Fist hesitantly, made a domineering gesture with his right hand, and slipped the ring onto it. His blood surged, and Fu Qian flicked his right hand, casting a whip made of twisted blood vessels and muscle that flashed through the air and disappeared. The strength and speed were good, and the activation was quite concealed, almost as if his arm had extended. Not bad, it seemed to make up for his lack of mid-range attack methods. He had the air bullet for long range before, and he feared no close combat, but with this thing, he could be flexible, long or short, firm and unyielding, bleh. As for the effect of losing one's sanity. Fu Qian thought for a moment, flicked his arm, and whipped himself on the back with the scarlet whip. Amidst the splattering of fresh blood, a burst of ferocious killing intent flashed through his mind and vanished. Excellent. After eating such disgusting things, there was finally some consolation. Fu Qian nodded in satisfaction and reached out to touch the mist gate before him. Consuming 1 SAN point to re-attempt containment. 1%, 5%, 18%, 50%, 99.5%, 100%, containment scene loading complete. Now it was time to do his job. Overtime was out of the question. Skills: Air Bullet, Visceral Critical Strike, Cat School. Weapon: Tyrant's Fist. Current SAN points: 32. The glimmering waves, the Wen family lakeside mansion once again came into view. Don't look around. In the face of the serious Captain Gu, Fu Qian patted the shoulder of this slacker's leader. I know. Sneaking in through broken columns, kicking in doors and smashing bowls. With one kick he sent Miss Wen flying, turned around to smash an incoming stone pillar, then picked up Wen Li and made his way to the underground safe house. The moment the safe house door closed, Fu Qian saw young Master Yi, alerted and rushing over, being firmly held back by Master Ji. How long do we have to stay here? In the safe house, faced with Wen Li's question, Fu Qian once again held up a finger. A week. No, it's an hour. Fu Qian shook his head. If you're not at 6th phase in an hour, I will peel off your skin. I'm sorry, but this is an impossible task for me, maybe you could just get started. Wen Li stared blankly at Fu Qian's face, then after a while, let out a bleak smile. This was never your mission. Fu Qian blinked. Come out. I don't understand what you mean. Wen Li's eyes were full of confusion. Crackle. The heavy metal tabletop was yanked off once again by Fu Qian. The next moment, the tabletop was hurled overhead, directly shredding the mouth of the ventilation duct and solidly blocking it. With a resounding boom, the entire safe house couldn't help but shake. You have 58 minutes left. Fu Qian continued to watch Wen Li with an expressionless face. The latter stared straight back at Fu Qian, and after a long while, her face broke into a smile. I really can't deal with you. But is 1 hour really not enough? The previous pitiful hesitance had vanished, and Wen Li walked elegantly to the side and sat down. Just as I thought, I knew there was something strange about you. How should I address you? Wen Li is fine, isn't it? Essentially, I am the same person as her. Wen Li blinked, crossing her legs and propping them up. Even though I don't know why you insist on me coming out, it's quite nice to have someone to talk to. Many times, having a talent is not a fortunate thing. Over many years of growth, being forced to listen to countless people's innermost thoughts, sensing their emotions, those voices are so noisy that you might forget what your own original feelings were. Amidst endless troubles and hesitations, one day, I became we. Nice storytelling, but unfortunately, I hate when my time is wasted. Before Wen Li could finish, an air bullet grazed her forehead, causing a stinging pain on her scalp as countless strands of hair fell. You can be anything, but you are definitely not Wen Li. Fu Qian withdrew his hand, saying lazily. Why would you say that? Wen Li sat up straight, her expression becoming grave for the first time. Nonsense, if you were a split personality product of Wen Li, I wouldn't bother with you. No matter which one of you advances to the 6th phase, my mission is complete, and afterwards, you can do whatever you like. But the problem is, last time Wenli clearly succeeded in advancing to the 6th phase, yet the notification I received was that the Wenli's death mission failed. The only explanation is that even within the same body, this thing is a completely different entity from Wenli. This is also the reason Fu Qian only gave an hour this time, and the threat changed from stripping and throwing out to killing directly. Last time, this entity never showed up in the face of the stripping threat, indicating she didn't care much about that. Sure enough, Wenli was terrified by the threat of being stripped, but now she seemed resigned to her fate, and this entity clearly cared more about life and came out immediately. Of course, Fu Qian wouldn't divulge these thoughts, just snorted coldly. I have been wandering around for many years, seen countless women, and have long developed discerning eyes. Your trivial tricks can't fool me. You are free to keep making things up, but just a friendly reminder, you only have 50 minutes left. You can call me Yvette. The fake Wenli's expression completely cooled down. You are indeed somewhat unique. Thank you for the compliment. Can you reveal your true origin? This was indeed something Fu Qian was curious about. Intuitively it was the key to Wenli's connection with the containment item. 2-292, Cocoon Chamber. You guessed right, I was born from her, but I am indeed not her. But what I said earlier was not entirely false. The pain and confusion Wenli encountered were real, and I was born from the intense emotional turbulence that couldn't be dissipated. Of course, she never knew about my existence. In a sense, I am the power of the transcendent itself. Wenli is just the soil in which I grew. For this reason, as long as she can advance to the 6th phase, I will be able to fully revive from inside her, and she will vanish forever. I believe the things I've said have shown enough sincerity, right? Yvette fixed her gaze on Fu Qian. No matter what your goals are, I must tell you clearly that it is impossible to advance to the 6th phase within an hour. Now I have completely taken over the body, and with the accumulation having reached its limit, all you need to do is give me one more day, no, 5 hours, and I will be able to attempt to fulfill your request. Yvette broke into a sweet smile, grabbing Fu Qian's hand and pressing it onto her dazzlingly white thigh. During this process, I don't need to be so quiet, you can use the extra time however you want. The touch was smooth as if touching condensed milk. Fu Qian looked carefully and, even with the most critical gaze, couldn't find a single flaw. Coincidentally, I happen to have some special skills for use. Chapter 31, Chapter 31, Chapter 30 Whipping Through the Glass _1. Chapter 31, Chapter 30 Whipping Through the Glass _1. Special skill. Yvette looked at Fu Qian with puzzlement. Yes. The latter flicked his wrist, and a scarlet whip appeared out of nowhere, creating a beautiful whip flower. Looking at the blood vessels and tendons on the whip, Yvette's expression instantly became as colorful as could be. You, psychopath. Yvette could certainly tell that this whip was not a kinky toy but a bona fide weapon. Her heart sank as she looked at Fu Qian, unable to understand. What on earth do you want to do? How does this benefit you? Smack. In the face of her accusation, Fu Qian didn't utter a word, answering her with his actions instead. Accompanied by another crisp crack, a deep mark was left on Yvette's alabaster arm. Taken by surprise, the intense pain made Yvette scream miserably. However, the next moment, something even more terrifying happened. A chaotic and violent thought arose in her mind, causing her sanity to waver. Why would you do this? Yvette's voice became hoarsely unusual as she tried her best to dodge, but to no avail in front of the intangible and shadowless scarlet whip. Why? Fu Qian struck another lash, stepped back, stood tall, and let out a cold scoff. Audacious evil creature, I knew at first glance that you're not human. Watch as I reveal your true form. Prepare to catch the demon. This bizarre line nearly froze Yvette on the spot, then she was, without a doubt, lashed again. Why? Why must you force me? Amidst her severe pain, howls emerged from her throat. At the same time, a wildly violent aura emanated from her. Centered around the red whip marks on her body, crystal scales began to emerge, quickly spreading across her entire body. Each scale bore a blurry face that emitted waves of wailing. Soon, the crystal scales enveloped her completely, turning her into a massive crystal with countless facets that would make any woman scream. In her movements, the collective wails from the scales formed a wave of sound that could drive one's psyche into chaos. Under the assault of the sound waves, even Fu Qian felt his head grow heavy as though he had been struck by a hammer. SAN points -1. This sound actually caused him to lose SAN points. One cannot help but recall the scene of facing the offspring of an evil god. This thing truly isn't human. Confirming his judgment, Fu Qian's hands moved more decisively, repeatedly striking his target with Tyrant's Fist. When he deduced that something might be lurking inside Wenli, he thought of ways to coerce the entity into submission. However, none were as effective as this newly gained weapon, a pleasant surprise. Why? Why? Yvette's upper body fell to the ground, her neck stretching to an incredible length, staring at Fu Qian on all fours, the sound she made now almost resembling the howling of beasts. Under continuous lashings, the negative buildup of Tyrant's Fist was terrifying, and for someone like her with mental abilities, it was far more fearsome than physical damage. At this moment, the intense mental stimulus coupled with the desire to survive, made her transform her state at all costs. As long as she could advance to the 6th phase, everything would be different. Die. After taking another lash without evasion, Yvette finally fought back. Her crystal scales seemed to possess an incredible strength, the scarlet whip could no longer leave any marks on them. She went down on all fours, like a charging beast, and after a brief sprint, she leaped high, her front claws tearing towards Fu Qian's chest. The speed and strength were almost catching up with the physical type. Reaching the middle tier really was a qualitative change. Facing this terrifying strike, Fu Qian felt a wave of emotion. What he felt even more deeply, though, was that this creature really had lost its mind. You might be close to the physical type, but you're up against the real physical type. Easily dodging Yvette's attack, Fu Qian kicked her squarely in the waist, sending her flying. Considering his mission objective, he didn't put too much force into the kick. This thing shared a body with Wenli. If he truly killed Wenli, he would unquestionably fail his mission. One thing was now certain, Wenli had not yet died, otherwise, his mission would have been a failure long ago. She was most likely in a near comatose state. Yvette kicked away, rolled and then quickly steadied herself on all fours again, staring at Fu Qian with a fierce glare. What strong nerves you have. So many strikes with the whip and still not insane. Fu Qian squinted his eyes. It must be the scales neutralizing the effects of the subsequent strikes from Tyrant's Fist. Yvette's condition actually seemed to be stabilizing. I might have to thank you. A hoarse voice came from Yvette's throat. Although this isn't the way I wanted, completing the ascension in this form might bring me unimaginable benefits. Your weapon is interesting, but it's a pity it still fell a little short of making me lose control, haha. Once I'm done with all this, I'll let you experience what true agonizing madness is. No need to be so polite. Upon hearing Yvette's threat, Fu Qian was not the least bit worried. If it was just a little bit short, how about this? Blood splattered as he viciously lashed the scarlet whip across his own back. Boom. A chaotic and violent murderous intent surged within him. Someone once told me that she is like a mirror, capable of clearly sensing and reflecting the emotions of those around her, so how about adding this to the mix? Is this enough now? No sooner had Fu Qian finished speaking than Yvette let out a mournful howl, her limbs trembling before she collapsed to the ground, a look of uncontrollable terror in her eyes. It seemed to work. Slap slap slap. Fu Qian, controlling the Tyrant's Fist, repeatedly struck himself without pause. As the final lash fell, Yvette let out an earth-shaking scream, the crystal scales on her body shattered to pieces, and she collapsed completely. Fu Qian stopped and walked over to her side. He could clearly sense that the part of the consciousness belonging to Yvette had completely disintegrated. Next was the test of willpower. Fu Qian squatted down, bringing his mouth close to her ear. Time's up, I'm sorry you didn't meet my requirements. But I've changed my mind, I've decided to strip Miss Wen naked and throw her out. After repeating it twice, Fu Qian felt an astonishing wave of emotion emanating from her. The beast on the ground began to breathe rapidly, with psychic storms radiating outwards. Once again, Fu Qian experienced the sensation of emotions being amplified. It seemed effective. Feeling an exaggerated sense of joy within, Fu Qian quietly observed the changes in Wenli. With her breathing gradually becoming stable, the twisted deformities on her body slowly reverted, and the numerous broken mirror fragments melded away, returning to soft skin. After a while, as Fu Qian could hear people clearing obstacles in the ventilation ducts, Wenli slowly opened her eyes. Containment complete. Chapter 32, Chapter 32, Chapter 31, The essence of upgrading is giving birth to aliens, _1. Chapter 32, Chapter 31, The essence of upgrading is giving birth to aliens, _1. Wenli, who had just awakened, still looked a bit dazed. But Fu Qian could clearly sense that the aura emanating from her was much stronger than before. Rubbing her eyes and recognizing the high and mighty Fu Qian above her, Wenli suddenly jolted awake, instinctively reaching to touch herself. Undoubtedly, a piercing scream that could split eardrums resounded. There was no helping it, having received so many lashes just now, even the best quality clothing couldn't withstand it. Add to that the tears from the twisting and deformation of her body, it was no exaggeration to describe Wenli's current state as riddled with countless wounds. TCH, as if anyone was interested in looking. Congratulations on leveling up, Fu Qian said with a smile while looking at Wenli's face, offering his congratulations. This was a joy that came from the heart. Ah. Wenli shuddered and stared at Fu Qian's face, so much so that she was unaware that she had even let down the arm covering her chest. Taking a deep breath, she closed her eyes to release her perception, only to feel a power within her that she had never experienced before surging intensely. Truly, 6th phase. She had really broken through the bottleneck and officially become a middle-tier transcendent. But I really don't remember anything, and I don't know what happened. Wenli frowned and murmured subconsciously. This is destiny, the daughter of fate, nothing more than that. Fu Qian sighed deeply, thinking to himself that there is no need to be modest. She had indeed just slept, and others had taken the hardships for her. Of course, it was also true that she had taken quite a few kicks, and the title of kick receiver was truly befitting of her. As the noise above became closer, Fu Qian estimated that Tenming Xue and the others would be able to break through the ventilation shaft soon, and he posed one last question to Wenli. Do you resist hiding in the safe house because it's related to your ability? If there are no people nearby for you to perceive emotions from, would your own emotions be reflected and amplified repeatedly? How do you know? Wenli suddenly looked up, but the person in front of her had already disappeared, leaving only a mess in the empty safe house. Nonsense, if this wasn't your issue, you could have just found a place to hide whenever you didn't want to hear others' emotions, and there wouldn't have been any unbearable torment. The only explanation is that you suffer more when you are alone. Fu Qian mused internally upon his return to the warehouse. The anomaly that occurred during Wenli's upgrade had already made him suspect, and now he finally had confirmation. Evaluation, Merciless Sacrificial Blade. Emerging from a chrysalis is a painful process, especially when you are the chrysalis. You personally extinguished an underdeveloped creature and allowed transcendent powers to ascend in a seemingly normal fashion. No one will know this secret, including Wenli herself, whom you saved. Just like when life is nurtured within a chrysalis, nobody knows what happens inside. Kill count, Yvette X1. Reward, SAN points plus 25, Inspiration plus 5. Do you wish to replay the event review? Wrap up. Fu Qian was very satisfied with the results of his last attempt. The mist gate and the anomalies in the warehouse had disappeared, indicating clearly that he could clock out. Looking back now, the black and white worm chrysalis lying on the mist gate, in a sense, had already foreshadowed the relationship between Wenli and Yvette. You personally extinguished an underdeveloped creature and allowed transcendent powers to evolve in a seemingly normal fashion. Based on the literal meaning, the transcendent powers in the containment scene's world are quite peculiar indeed. When I first entered, the undeveloped juvenile mentioned in the prompt was naturally assumed to be Wenli, who needed protection. Now, it seems it actually referred to Yvette. She had been silently growing inside Wenli's body, and under normal circumstances, the moment Wenli advanced to the 6th phase, her consciousness would have been completely replaced by Yvette. By then, no one would know the middle-tier transcendent Wenli was no longer the person she used to be, and Yvette would have officially completed the process of emerging from her cocoon. This was also the reason for my last mission's failure. Alien form, ah. Fu Qian inexplicably thought of a line. Letting transcendent powers evolve in a seemingly normal way. This sentence suggests that in that world, this process is unknown to people. At least to most people's eyes, no one would realize that Wenli's advancement to the 6th phase was fundamentally such a change, but would instead regard it as a normal upgrade. At this point, the directive from the night watchman to watch and wait took on some significance. What did they know? Or did they sense something? Of course, none of that mattered now. It was time to go back and rest. I have to say, today's workload was a bit heavy. Escort missions are indeed the most exhausting. Compared to that, the rewards for containing the situation seemed somewhat meager. Aside from the regular rewards, there was nothing else. But upon further reflection, although the containment scenario was fraught with traps, I did not encounter any powerful entities difficult to contend with. Moreover, in the previous attempts, I had already gained quite a lot of benefits. I wonder if the rewards might be upgraded if the sitting big boss of the night watchman made a move. As for the accident replay, Fuqian did not check it out. Not to mention the process was so brief that it hardly required assisted memory, but Miss Wen's exposed scenes were not few either. It's better to respect the newly advanced 6th phase. Upon returning home, Fuqian immediately looked at the clock and found it was the exact same time as when he had entered. Indeed, working in that job did not consume real-world time. No matter how long I stayed, when I emerged it was still the exact moment of entry. Outside it was still early sunrise, as if nothing had changed at all. Fuqian shook his right hand a bit, and there on his middle finger, a dark red ring was strikingly visible. Under the sunlight's reflection, it seemed as if blood was surging within it. Quite a few things had changed, after all. Recalling the scene of swallowing the dark blood clot, Fuqian couldn't help but touch his chest again. Although the thought was a bit nauseating, that shape was really sharp, and thinking about it, there's a special kind of beauty to it. Speaking of which, since the rewards I gained could be brought back to reality, then, in theory, could I transform into that in the real world too? Stop. Fuqian rubbed his face, interrupting his bold thoughts. Indeed, has the harsh working environment caused spiritual contamination? Now, it seems I completely deserve the $1 million salary. Speaking of which, I ran off to work as soon as I got out of bed today, and haven't even had breakfast. Fuqian went to the kitchen and whipped up a bowl of noodles for himself in a few minutes. As everyone knows, noodles are an indispensable magic weapon for people who live alone. This simple food, with just a pot of boiling water plus 2 leaves of vegetables, can soothe a ravenous stomach. As someone without family or close ties, Fuqian had an abundant experience living alone and had mastered this skill long ago. Of course, most importantly, this one of the cheapest foods perfectly matched his near-bankrupt spending level before, so he had stocked up quite a lot at home. Looking at the steaming noodles on the table, Fuqian was about to dig in when a timely knock on the door was heard. Chapter 33, Chapter 33, Chapter 32 Friends _1. Chapter 33, Chapter 32 Friends _1. Open up. Time to get up. Without waiting for Fuqian to respond, the visitor was already shouting outside the door. It was Qinming's voice. Fuqian reluctantly glanced at his noodles before getting up to open the door. Outside, in addition to young Master Qin who had visited yesterday, there was a new, seemingly harmless young man in his 20s. Looking at Fuqian, who had opened the door, the two silently exchanged glances. Has young Master Qin been so free lately, unemployed? Fuqian looked expressionlessly at Qinming's. Unemployed, my ass, it's Saturday. Xiao Yu and I came to hang out at your place. Qinming's nearly spat all over Fuqian as he spoke and pushed his way into the room. Xiao Yu, the student in question, smiled helplessly, greeted Fuqian, and followed him into the house. Xiao Yu's full name was Wu Qingyu, a familiar face to Fuqian, and a mutual friend with Qinming's. The 24-year-old Wu Qingyu was a student at a prestigious medical college, currently doing his internship and rumored to be so overworked that he couldn't tell up from down. Fuqian hadn't seen him in a month or two. Young Master Qin dashed into the living room and plopped down on the couch, letting out a comfortable groan. There's nothing like these fabric couches, my neck pain was about to flare up these past few days. Next to him, Wu Qingyu was even more dramatic, lying motionless on the couch as soon as he touched it. Out with it, what's up? You guys didn't come over just to mooch off my couch. Fuqian glanced at his meal on the table. Hurry it up, I haven't eaten yet. You're just going to eat this? Young Master Qin looked at the table, his face a picture of horror. Forget it, Xiao Yu and I brought some stuff over, you can make do with that. Lying down, Wu Qingyu weakly handed over a bag upon hearing this. No real reason, Xiao Yu and I just happened to have the day off, and he mentioned we haven't seen you in a while, so we decided to drop by. Our weekend get-togethers have been on hold for quite some time. Young Master Qin explained with a straight face. Qin Mingze and Wu Qingyu were among the few guests that would come over to Fu Qian's place. Once upon a time, Fu Qian too was a bright young man, an excellent student. With his extraordinary intelligence, for a long time, he was the child everyone else's parents talked about, the nightmare of countless classmates. However, after his parents died in an accident when he was 10, Fu Qian underwent a major personality shift. By his own account, it was a profound realization. After months of contemplating the meaning of life, he decisively kicked words like studies, social life, future, love, and career out of his vocabulary, morphing into his current self. Naturally, very few friends remained. Nowadays, with Qin Mingze and Wu Qingyu included, that was basically his entire social circle. "You off today?" Fu Qian asked, looking at Wu Qingyu lying down in a sprawled pose, who hummed in affirmation. "Didn't you say before that you were too busy to die, with absolutely no time to rest?" "Busy, for sure." Wu Qingyu covered his face with a pillow, his voice dreamy. "Running errands, working night shifts, sticking labels, and whenever I get some rest, I freaking have to write papers. Now when I sleep, my head is filled with nothing but papers. So I came here to relax a bit." "Right, bring out your console, let's play. I haven't touched it in ages and my hands are itching." Qin Mingze patted Fu Qian. It must be mentioned here that, although Fu Qian often struggled between meals, his home was indeed equipped with a full set of gaming gear, with regular updates. For instance, he went broke recently because he had just bought the latest gaming console. As for why, as a member of the Lie Flat tribe, Fu Qian really had lots of free time, and gaming was a great way to get a dopamine fix. Moreover, writing copy for some indie games was one of his sources of income. As Fu Qian would say, creativity demands understanding the application context, so it was important to draw appropriate material when necessary. "What do we play today?" Young Master Qin rubbed his hands in excitement, the most thrilled among the three. In this day and age, gaming is an essential part of conversation for single young adults. The games they had played together were countless, and Wu Qingyu, with his finger agility earned through his profession, was usually the dominant force. However, Fu Qian had long since changed. His physical control had reached an unimaginable level. Watching Fu Qian's expressionless face as he soundly thrashed both of them, young Master Qin eventually grew so frustrated that he kicked him off the console. "How's the progress on your latest career planning?" While teasing the half-asleep Wu Qingyu, young Master Qin asked casually. "It's only been one day, right?" Fu Qian thought to himself, finally it has come. He had already noticed that the two of them had been observing him with utmost caution, and upon hearing this, he immediately pressed the power button on his console. "Spill it, why did you two come over today, exactly?" Qin and Wu looked at each other, and finally, Wu Qingyu started speaking hesitantly. "Yesterday, Brother Qin rushed to find me, saying you seemed a bit off and was worried about your health. He insisted on dragging me here to check on you." Xiao Qian. Qin Mingze was also very serious. "I understand your urgent feeling, but fitness is something that should be approached step by step. Some quick-fix methods can be very harmful to the body." After finishing, he turned his head back. "Is he really okay?" "I still have that much confidence." Wu Qingyu yawned. "Although I don't know how Xiao Qian trains, he looks very healthy, and I bet he could take me down no problem. But isn't this progress too fast? I can't understand." Young Master Qin looked at Wu Qingyu with a sense of life's futility, and the latter just spread his hands. "Well, actually I hid some details yesterday." Touched by the two friends taking time out of their busy schedules to check on his health, Fu Qian decided to come clean with some information. There really was a hidden story. Qin and Wu both sat up straight, their eyes shining attentively. "Actually, I've recently taken on a part-time job that pays quite well, and working out just comes with it." "Pays quite well? Is it physical labor?" Qin and Wu were both surprised. "Mostly, but it also occasionally requires some brainpower, and mastery of certain skills is very important." Qin and Wu's eyes were wide. "Must be a lot of exercise required, right?" "Not always, but sometimes you have to repeat things many times, which can be annoying. You need to take care of your body." They had run out of things to say. "Wait a minute. After a moment of silence, Qin Ming's expression changed dramatically as he suddenly stood up and started taking off his clothes. Damn. This action completely dumbfounded Wu Qingyu, who rubbed his face subconsciously. I'm not awake yet, I'm not awake yet, I'm in a nightmare, I'm in a nightmare. After rubbing for a while, he suddenly let out a wail. Why is my thesis still not finished in my nightmare? Take off your clothes and put on mine. Qin Mingze tossed his clothes to Fu Qian. What for? Just put them on. After Fu Qian was dressed, Qin Mingze took out his phone and took several photos from different angles, then snapped his fingers after he was done. It's such a waste not to use those muscles of yours. We are nearly the same height, so later I'll Photoshop your head away and replace it with mine. I'll be invincible when it comes to picking up girls. Fu Qian turned to look at Wu Qingyu. If you had put this much shameless effort into your thesis, it would have already been done. Better not. Chapter 34, Chapter 34, Chapter 33 Angel of Comfort _1. Chapter 34, Chapter 33 Angel of Comfort _1. Identity verification complete, work for the day begins. After a pleasant gathering with his close friends, Fu Qian put on his work badge on time Sunday morning. To him, it was no longer just a job, but a rare pleasure. He couldn't think of any other work that would make him willingly work overtime on the weekend. Warning, leak incident. Name, Angel of Comfort, code, 1-003. Today's work content has been updated. Enter the containment scene of 1-003 and complete recontainment. Unsurprisingly, a new leak incident had occurred. Fu Qian was accustomed to such incidents by now, but he still became vigilant upon seeing the code number. This was the first time he had encountered a leaked item with a code number starting with 1. Fu Qian had always been guessing what the prefix of these item numbers truly represented. According to simple logical deductions, the code number should at least follow some sort of pattern, like the smaller the number, the more dangerous it could be. If that were the case, the difficulty of this containment would likely be quite high. He needed to be fully alert. Besides the code number, the anomalous phenomena caused by the warehouse leak were also a bit strange this time. The illusory image caused by the leak was a white sphere about 2 meters in diameter. Fu Qian observed it repeatedly, confirming there was nothing special about it, it was just a sphere without even a pattern on it. Entering the containment scene of 1-003. 1%, 5%, 10%, 55%, 75%, 100%, scene loading complete. Eternity brings comfort. Transcendents enjoy exploring various forbidden domains, honing themselves, and seeking advancement. As a young transcendent, during an excursion, you and many of your peers stepped into an unknown realm filled with fog and ancient structures, imbued with a mysterious aura. Unfortunately, the explorers were unaware that not all paths have a return journey. Skills, Air Bullet, Visceral Critical Strike, Cat School. Weapon, Tyrant's Fist. Containment Achievement Condition, Escape the Furnace. Current SAN points, 56, Current Inspiration, 16. A series of explanatory texts flashed by, and Fu Qian regained his perception. Strange, is this place on the map? Someone was speaking ahead, and Fu Qian looked in the direction of the voice, finding himself amidst the ruins of some buildings. The sky was misty overhead, obscuring the sun, moon, and stars. At the moment, there was a team within the ruins that looked quite young, averaging about 20 years old. Though young, their strengths were not weak, they were all much stronger than young Master Yi Yang, and their companions. There were even a few with exceptional spirit, probably around the 7th phase at least. More importantly, the group was fully equipped with various swords and weapons, they were armed to the teeth. Exploration Team, Fu Qian recalled the content from the introduction. The one who had just spoken was a young man at the forefront of the team. He was frowning and signaling for the others to stop. There's no path again, the layout of this place is too chaotic, he said. He was right, the path the group had been following was cut off, a broken wall was inserted at an angle, and the mottled marks on the stones looked very old. The wall could certainly be climbed over, but what was on the other side was uncertain. Not only the broken walls, but a careful look into the distance revealed that this place was a hodgepodge of architecture. Spires, archways, stone columns, a jumble of chaotic elements squeezed together, just one glance was enough to induce a visceral disapproval. At this moment, all these structures were shrouded in a layer of grayish-white mist. The mist wasn't very dense, yet it carried an inexplicable obscuring effect that made it difficult to see what lay beyond. Liu Huang, should we stop here? The young man surveyed the surroundings and looked at another person in the team, seemingly seeking an opinion. The one he called Liu Huang was a girl around his age, walking right behind him. This girl had a beautiful face, with features as if painted, and even in simple clothes designed for ease of movement, her stunning beauty was undeniable, no less than Li whom they had encountered earlier. Indeed, it's a bit strange. The girl also furrowed her brow slightly. I've never heard of such a place here, and there's no mention of it on the map. Yet, looking at these architectural ruins, they seem rather ancient. There are too many forks in the road here, and we've indeed gone too deep. Let's stop and regroup. There's no rush at this moment. Even though it's a free exploration, we'd better not get too far from the other teams, otherwise, it will be tough for Director Li to look after us. The two seemed to be the core members of the team, and at their suggestion, everyone agreed almost instantly. The group efficiently unloaded their gear to rest, and quickly a makeshift camp emerged in the wilderness. A group of young transcendents, well prepared for wilderness exploration under good guidance. Fu Qian made a swift judgment. This team was strong individually and coordinated well. They must have strayed into these ruins during some exploration. His mission was to escape from the furnace. Were these architectural graveyards the furnace? Just by getting out of here, could he complete the containment? Fu Qian glanced around him. He didn't see anything that might hinder his escape, but moving through such a place could easily lead to getting lost. Especially those structures that could serve as landmarks, with their bizarre angles and stacks, could very well create illusions. Young people are always full of vigor, and soon enough, from the conversations among the group, Fu Qian learned that Liu Shuang's full name was Liu Huang, and the first to speak was named Yuan Xin, the two strongest members of the team. The group all hailed from a place called the Academy, an institution dedicated to the specialized training of transcendents. Besides this team, there were two other teams, 30 people in total, elites of the Academy, led personally by the vice principal, a veritable luxury exploration team. Regrettably, this luxury exploration team seemed utterly unaware that they had walked into a path of no return. Do you recognize what this is? At that moment, someone in the team pulled something out from their backpack to show to the others to identify. Along the way, there's hardly any life in these ruins, only this thing directly growing on the rocks. I casually collected some, and the deeper we go, the more there seems to be. The person tried to tear it with their hands. It's as fine as a hair but very tough. Seems like it would be a good material. Everyone shook their heads, and someone pointed to where Fu Qian was sitting and said with a laugh. You could ask Fu Qian, he's more into researching these strange things. Suddenly attracting attention out of nowhere. Fu Qian had realized earlier that he was on the fringe of the team, not very welcome. Not only did he walk at the very end during the trek, but no one had spoken to him during the break either. But now, without a doubt, all eyes were on him. Seeing that person indeed approach with a smile, holding that thing in front of him. Fu Qian took a glance. Hair. Part 2 of the series ends here. Thank you for watching and listening. If you find it interesting, please give us a like, a comment and a subscription so that we have the motivation to make the next videos.